What's up, guys? Welcome back to Michigan Muckraker. My name is Michelle. Today is January 21st of 2025. Before I get started, I'm just going to make sure that you guys can actually hear me and that my stream has actually begun. So far on my end, it doesn't look like it, so please forgive me just these few minutes. There we go. Alright, so today I have a video for you guys about Michigan economic development. The Michigan Economic Development Corporation was just in the news recently for corruption, and there's tons going on that has to do with the development of our state. Now, this is going on all throughout the United States and the world, really, but today I'm going to talk to you about Gotion, Detroit, Flint, even the UP. All of it has to do with a central plan or a command type of economy. So we're going to get into a few of the definitions that we need to know before I get into it, and then I'm going to get into the information. So first things first, sustainability. It is the practice of meeting the needs of the present without harming the environment or future generations. It's about creating and maintaining a balance between the economy, environment, and equity. So of course, equity is one of those keywords that is used in these central plans or these master plans that are being implemented on us. I like how they use meet the needs of present without harming the environment. Oh, that's not what exactly. There was two different definitions the AI gave me. The other one said something about resources and indicating that they're finite, which is debatable. Now, sustainable development, the history of sustainable development, the concept of sustainable development formed the basis of the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development held in Rio de Janeiro in 1992. The summit marked the first international attempt to draw up action plans and strategies for moving forward towards a more sustainable pattern of development. And that's what we're seeing here now, UN Agenda 21. The difference between a market economy and a command economy. Key takeaways. In a market economy, businesses are privately owned, and they decide what to produce based on the profit motive. In a command economy, a government body controls the factors of production and determines how much to produce and what to sell it for. Now, in this case, we have a command economy in Michigan specifically, because our government body uses the Michigan Economic Development Corporation to determine what is going to come here and be developed. That's how Gotion got sprung on us and all of these huge development plans that we didn't know about until the final stages, right? We, the people, don't get a say because it's not a market, a free market, capitalist economy. It's not. It is a command economy. It is communitarianism. The activity in a market economy is not organized by a central authority, but is determined by the supply and demand of goods and services. Supply and demand is natural law. The free market gives each individual the most freedom. That's why it's called free market, right? That is obviously what I am for, and that's why I talk so much about what's going on in Michigan, in particular, why I focus on economic development and sustainable development. This is the future of our country that's being built without our say. Consumer preferences and resource scarcity determine which goods are produced and in what quantity. The 18th century economist Adam Smith, in his book The Wealth of Nations, compares market activity to an invisible hand that distributes resources to the public. And again, that's because it was discovered, the law of supply and demand. It wasn't created by humans. Command economy inserts humans, anointed ones, right, in between us and our decisions. Capitalism or planned economy are different economic systems. Now, I'm really focusing in on this because a couple of the things that we get into later on about the World Economic Forum, they call the World Economic Forum capitalist, and it's not at all. In a capitalist system, private individuals and businesses own the means of production and decide what goods and services to produce. In a planned economy, the government controls production and prices. Well, you know what? We have a fascist economy, which we're going to get into. So there are private individuals that are trying to own everything in a way, right? You own nothing, I own nothing. That somebody has to own it. So basically it's going to be the corporation, right? Ford makes a car, you rent it, you don't own it, so on and so forth. What is a smart city? And why do we need them? Of course, this is really important. I didn't realize that some people don't know what a smart city is, so please forgive me if you do. But I have buddies that I play video games with that are in their 20s, and somehow they don't know what a smart city is. And I'm shocked by that. The general definition, and to put in simple words, smart city is a framework based on information and communication technologies that enable the development and sustainable practices to address the urbanization challenges. Leveraging the technology is one of the foremost pillars of smart cities. In order to increase efficiencies and improve the quality of residents' life and the city's services. It's all about protecting pedestrians, it's about saving lives, because you feel like your government really cares about your life, right? What about its objectives? The smart city objective is to maximize the use of resources in a city to make everyday life easier and better for people who work and inhabit a city. Now, they're right about one thing. It's about maximizing the use of resources. That's what this whole spiritual and material war that we are experiencing right now is about. It is about controlling every resource and inventorying it, of course, in order to control it. A massive influx of people towards cities is expected to increase in the next few years. More and more of us are living in cities. McKinsey predicted in one of their reports that by 2050, 2.5 billion new residents will be expected to move to the city. There is an urge to make cities livable and smarter for better quality of living. No, there's an urge now to make cities smarter so that they can monitor everything we do. Because smart actually means, I had it up here too, surveillance, monitor, assess, record technology. I'll have it down in the description below. I have it in another tab, but on this other window, so I can't get to it. Data, of course, data is at the heart of it. The storm of smart technologies is developing in our favor to enable the next wave to plan the future by using the resources wisely. Who is to determine how the resources are used? Cities generate an ocean of data, and it begs the question of how to define the word smarter. This is why we have all these data centers popping up, especially in Michigan, because, spoiler alert, Michigan has one of the most valuable resources on this plane of existence. And of course, that's water, right? We need water and food and shelter to survive. But water, we can't go 3 days without, right? So there's nothing really, no resource more important than fresh water. And Michigan has the most in the United States. It has like 20% of the world or some such. I had the number in my head before, but it's gone now. The definition of becoming smarter is in perpetual change as cities are becoming smarter by the day. The increase of technological advancements and its quick adoption globally opens the city to more possibilities of using it in their operations. It falls under different areas in the city, from public transportation to water management to power supply. Pretty much everything, right? However, the objective of Smart City is quite common and is based on the following: enhancing performance in transportation, utilizing data, enhancing the citizen quality of life, access to different governmental services, optimizing resources, reducing waste, improving consumption and costs, among others. So this reducing of waste, the circular economy, you're going to start hearing it more and more if you haven't already, and that's how they're going to reduce waste. They're going to use whatever waste there is to make something else. Which, of course, in theory, I'm not against it, but where are the limits? What about your own poop and pee? Not to be too vulgar, but are they going to try to reuse that in some way? I'm pretty sure they're already doing something similar in Grand Rapids, but that's for a topic for another day. Smart Cities World categorized these different objectives in 5 distinct categories to cover current global content resources: connectivity and data, governance and citizen, energy and environment, mobility, and urban space. Smart City is indeed dependent on the collection of data to enhance city infrastructure projects. Moscow released the catalog of Smart City projects that contains resource information on 68 smart city projects and public data sets to facilitate city infrastructures. So you're telling me that Moscow, so Russia, is also implementing Agenda 21 Sustainable Development Goals? Of course they are. AI technology and machine learning is also a core element in the connectivity of the city. In case you didn't notice, it's really all the governments of the world at war with the people, trying to monitor and control everything we do. And that includes Russia and China and the United States. For example, smart sensors planted in our cities to detect, track, and classify vehicles, pedestrians, and cyclists will definitely improve the traffic management in our cities. It's all about improving traffic. That's why they turned 4 lanes into 2 and 1 lane or 2 lanes into 1 with some bike lanes. It's because they care about congestion in our traffic, right? The interplay between the government and the citizen is crucial to provide citizen engagement, inclusivity, and security for residents. In smart cities, the right of the citizen to participate in information exchange is important. For instance, the Edinburgh government committing to becoming sustainable food city is a reflection of a move towards a greener, livable city that responds to the climate emergency plan. Climate emergency. On a global scale, addressing the climate issue and helping deliver net zero, Arup and C40 urges neighborhoods to use 15-minute city principle. Developing neighborhood and relying on local amenities can be a catalyst for change, responding to the vision of low carbon future. Now, real quick, I will say that all of these articles I'm going to share with you, I don't know if AI created them or not. Something that I've been really thinking about lately is the dead internet theory, right? I mean, we don't know what's AI and what's not. Even in our video games, we could be playing against AI now because of this digital twin concept that they've come up with, which I'm going to get into. Sorry, better get into it before I lose time. It also depends on relying on different mode of transportation, like the micro-mobility electric vehicles and autonomous vehicles that enable efficient logistic network and reduces emission. Earlier this year, Dubai established the world's longest driverless metro that expands travel options linking different metro stations. This is an excellent example of smart city development that enhances connectivity and smart mobility in the city. Moving towards smart mobility is at the core of smart city development, such as Seoul government aiming to deliver 270,000 electric vehicles for public transportation by 2050. Boston plans bike share expansion, city of Pescara launching a fleet of 100 Mi-Moto electric mopeds. Globally, cities are in a race towards net zero, reducing emission and relying on local resources and amenities to fight the climate change and global warming issues. So, now that we know what smart cities are, let's get into all this data mining that's going on here in Michigan. First, this is what could happen if Gotion was to be put on our river and then a fire starts, because this is Moss Landing Power Plant's lithium battery storage facility. Okay, this is the storage facility. It was on fire for quite some time. This was on the 17th, so I'll have to look for an update on that. I was supposed to get this video on Saturday, and I apologize for all the delays. I kept picking pretty bad times, though, right? Detroit Lions playing, talking about Michigan, and then Donald Trump's inauguration yesterday was obviously not a great time either to be doing a video on Michigan. So this is Dave Bondi over on Twitter, More Michigan Solar. This one is happening in Raisin Township in Leelanau County, Michigan. If approved, 827 acres of farmland would be solar panels. Public meeting scheduled for February 4th at 7 p.m. Follow me for more on these stories. So I do recommend following Dave Bondi. I think he's doing a great job on staying up on economic development. But I wanted I wanted you to know this information so that you can, by February 4th, figure out if you want to go to that meeting, right? And make your voice heard. Now, quick explanation from Rosa Corey. on Agenda 21. And if you don't know who she was, she wrote a great book, Behind the Green Mask, UN Agenda 21. Highly recommend picking it up. It'll explain everything you need to know about what you're seeing today going on in the United States. But this is just 2 minutes. She's going to quickly explain. I think it's really enlightening.
Now, you were considered to be a top expert on Agenda 21, and your work has been invaluable in bringing this UN agenda to light. Now, for those of you, the viewers out there who may not exactly know what Agenda 21 is, could you please provide us a brief overview of this program?
Sure. Agenda 21 is the action plan. It's the blueprint, the comprehensive plan that was signed on to by 178 nations plus the Holy See in 1992. It's the United Nations plan, and it's a plan to inventory and control all land, water, plants, minerals, construction, means of production, food, energy, everything on the planet, law enforcement, education, and of course, information and human beings. So this is, a comprehensive plan of action, an inventory and control plan. It's about data sharing. It's about money transferring from the developed nations to the lesser developed nations. And ultimately, it's about destroying your ability to have a voice, destroying your ability to have representative government. It's about changing your government to governance and taking away your voice, giving your entirely destroying your ability to be free and to be independent. And the goal, of course, is to transfer power from local and individuals to a global governance system. So you can't do that all at once, and it's been a long process. And you see it as, exactly what you're seeing right now. It's a plan to disrupt and destroy the existing system. It's a plan of transformation and control. And that's what we're living through right now. What is happening now is that the technology has caught up to the plans of these people. They've always had these same plans, that there is literally nothing that holds these people back. So when they have the technological ability, and you look at the fourth industrial revolution or whatever it is they want to call it, they're talking about total digital connectivity. They're talking about a new social contract.
They're talking about, sorry, get that out of there. They're talking about a new social contract. And that's exactly right. Real quick, this is the comprehensive plan, Agenda 21. It is huge, and you could go anywhere. I just flipped the other day, which I need to delve more into this because this is the document itself, and that's what I like to do. But I get into this, and right off the bat, conservation and management of resources for development, promoting sustainable agriculture. Let's see. It's talking about data and information, and there's one here that talks about genetics and genetic material and how to control genetic material. It's very enlightening. I recommend. The only problem is you're giving money, obviously, to them when you buy that product, but I recommend picking it up. Protect the Porkies. Protect Lake Superior. Stop the copperwood mine. So this is going on, excuse me, in the UP. Right now, they're trying to build a copper mine up here in the Porcupine Mountains right there. The proposed copperwood mine is a Canadian company's plan to mine next to and underneath the most beautiful section of the Porcupine Mountains State Park, ship the copper out of the country with no promise of return, board up shop in 10 years, and leave behind over 30 million tons of waste in the closest metallic sulfide waste facility to Lake Superior in history. Although billed as a copper mine, in fact, copper comprises only 1.45% of extracted material. The remaining 98.55% would be waste, excuse me, containing mercury, arsenic, and other toxins to be stored on site in a 323-acre waste facility erected on topography sloping directly into Lake Superior. So here's a little video, no sound needed, but you can see that this is the model, shows copperwood mine waste entering Lake Superior. So if you want to sign this petition, if you want to try to stop this copper mine from coming to fruition, there's still time. I think we have 1 more week till the 27th of January. So at least for the air quality permit and the public hearing and such that's going on with it. So again, I will have this linked down below if you want to sign the petition. I have more information on that coming, but we're going to jump into this. Students in Problem Solving Initiative course publish a roadmap to clean and equitable power in Michigan, August 27th, 2024, out of Michigan Law. As part of the Law School's Problem Solving Initiative, PSI, a group of 20 selected U of M graduate students, including 6 from Michigan Law and 5 from the School of Environment and Sustainability, SEAS. Now, if you've been hanging out with me for any length of time, you should know about the Newaygo Recycling Center, and that was made with a company called SEAS. So this acronym is used quite often, but in this case, and in every case, really, it has to do with environment and sustainability. As Michigan works to achieve its clean energy and energy justice goals outlined in the Michigan Climate Action Plan, the traditional investor-owned utility model for providing electricity is often an obstacle to progress. The roadmap shows that Michigan can move away from investor-owned utility power and get significant benefits if it does so strategically. No one has done a study like this before in Michigan or elsewhere in the country. It's the first systemic assessment of alternative options for power provision. Students developed a report in the winter of 2024. The roadmap examines 4 alternatives to the traditional IOU model for delivering electricity in the state of Michigan. The students assessed each of the options against climate, energy, justice, reliability, and affordability goals. I really want to know, what is climate justice? What is environmental justice? The 4 options include, who's to decide what that is? Who decides what justice is? Reforming the Michigan Public Service Commission's authority, authorizing legislation and rules overseeing IOUs, focusing on those that alter IOU incentive structures. Creating a statewide public power authority that replaces IOUs. So we're going to nationalize power. I'm sure that it's coming. It has to, right? Creating municipally owned utilities to replace IOUs at the local level. And utilizing sustainable energy utilities, SEUs, to provide a municipal utility alternative that works alongside and can compete with the existing IOUs. This is curious to me, utilizing sustainable energy utility. So that's probably what's coming. I've never heard of that until this article. Something for me to look into. A key takeaway from the report is that alternatives to Michigan's current utility systems are feasible and they are more equitable than IOUs. I also wanted this individual right here. I'm going to try, I don't know if I should. Wan Hongshong, sorry, executive director of MEJC, agreed the student work is extraordinary and can help our coalition advocate for more clean, just, and equitable energy policies. Now, this is an executive director at the MEJC, which I don't think it says what the MEJC is in here. Yes, it does. Michigan Environmental Justice Coalition. So this individual is an executive on this coalition. And this individual is he, they, she, queer immigrant born in Peru of indigenous Chinese and Hakka ancestry. So this is the individual right here that is in charge. Just our school systems, man. They have been captured. Sustainable energy utility. Here we go. The business model of the SEU, positioned as a one-stop shop utility serving 21st century sustainability goals. A sustainable energy utility represents a new actor in the utility services landscape that is capable of restructuring priorities and pursuing strategies to realize a new economy built on sustainability practices. I don't know what's up with these dashes everywhere. In Chinese. So there we go. We got a little taste of what the sustainable energy utility is, and that's probably what's coming. Clean Seas Nuevo Chemical Recycling Facility. In January 2023, this Clean Seas company announced plans to build a chemical recycling facility in Nuevo, Michigan, about 45 minutes north of Grand Rapids. Now, I took a tour of that plant, but of course I took a tour when none of that equipment was in there, and they were still just a regular recycling plant, right? So I think there was some subterfuge there, to be honest. I think that I haven't seen anything going forward, but I also haven't seen any cancellation on this. There is some battle going on with whether or not chemical recycling is actually sustainable. And so hopefully they will deem chemical recycling not sustainable, even though I hate utilizing it. But I don't want a chemical recycling plant, again, on the Muskegon River. This is the river I live on. It's downriver from me, but I still care about the whole river, right? I care about my water and where I live. University of Michigan delegation to COP25. Oh, this is another, I'm sorry, I bounced around a little bit there, but you come down here and that individual also went to COP25. So that COP25 is United Nations meeting every year. Graduate student for the School for Environment and Sustainability at the University of Michigan. His academic interests include agroecology, sustainable development, indigenous rights, and climate justice with a regional focus on Latin America. At COP25, he is interested in learning more about the intersection of green economies, clean technology, resource extraction, and indigenous sovereignty. I wonder what the difference between indigenous sovereignty and regular sovereignty. Why don't we all want sovereignty, right? Certainly isn't sovereignty the way we're heading, and that individual is helping pave the way. Through University of Michigan. These hosts discussion about climate action in 2025 and beyond. This was January 15th, 2025. The University of Michigan School for Environment and Sustainability hosted Climate Action in 2025 and beyond, creating a resilient and just future in Michigan and across the globe. Tuesday evening to discuss taking action against the climate crisis and strategies for achieving environmental justice. I have it highlighted probably a million times because, again, I can't really get a clear definition. What are the rules for this justice? About 300 U of M students and Ann Arbor community members, in addition to 300 virtual attendees, gathered. Okay. Baker opened the event by discussing the urgency of our current climate crisis, citing recent weather events across the globe. She acknowledged the toll that climate change takes on the human spirit and highlighted the aspects of everyday life that are impacted. I had two different notes here. Opened with fear. So Baker opened the event with fear by discussing the urgency of the current climate crisis, which, if you read the book Green Tyranny, you know what? Sorry about my mess. I got a book problem. I'm perfectly aware of this. This, Green Tyranny, Exposing the Totalitarian Roots of the Climate Industrial Complex, Robert Darwell. Highly recommend. I think the resources back here have to be 100 pages on their own. So, right there, that's all just notes and resources for further research. So, highly recommend that book. I could recommend a million. And actually want to do a book video, but I never get to it because there's so many other important things. With every shift in the ice or shift in the normal seasonal patterns in a region, every storm, fire, and flood, with every loss of life, we also lose something so precious to all of us, Baker said. We lost a part of the fabric of the places we hold dear, so we must fight. Now, I got an article based on this exact phrasing. War with ourselves. It's exactly what this is, this whole climate thing. It's a war with ourselves. Fight for the places that hold deep spiritual significance and personal significance to so many people. Each and every one of us, and in the university community, we are going to set new standard for what universities can do for climate action, Overpeck said. We have a need for acceleration because climate change is accelerating. The impacts are accelerating. But we can accelerate our efforts and be a catalyst for accelerating efforts around the world. That's what our schools are doing. That's what our colleges are promoting. And again, it's all based on a lie that carbon is a pollution and that we are polluting by breathing. What my research shows very clearly is that folks who get involved in the environmental movement get to know other people in those organizations, plug into leadership roles, and start to really see that they're far more powerful than they previously thought, Henderson said. And this is how they're taken over, right? This is how the United Nations will take over America without firing a shot. It's through economic development. That's why I'm so obsessed with it. And Industry 4.0 and the Great Reset, World Economic Forum. My research also shows when congressional offices or other representatives are getting calls and they're getting letters from a large share of their constituents on an issue, they're more likely to put it at the top of their priorities. Andrew Van Ball, environment and sustainability graduate student and a panelist at the event, said bridging the gap in climate change knowledge between urban and rural regions could help to support the agrarian communities affected by the climate crisis. Right. Because it's mostly city folk that want to put wind turbines up because they're not going to have to look at them, right? We have a messaging problem as a climate community of reaching out across the aisle and talking to these people and explaining to them how these policies are impacting their lives, Van Ball said. I hope that it's a consideration that we can continue to have and we can uplift these rural communities because they provide so much to us. Again, there's this disconnect that always really has been, but the people in the country don't need to make a lot of money because they don't need to spend a lot of money. At least that's how it used to be until this whole leave no one behind act that United Nations is putting forth, right? Can't leave anybody alone. So rural communities, you have to go in with a plan too. You can't be left behind. But rural communities just want to be left alone. And we don't want tons of money. We would rather be in nature and so on and so forth. So this whole rural versus city, it hasn't changed, and unfortunately it's just getting worse because these self-anointed, I lost my self-anointed book, these self-anointed pricks want to tell us what we have to have in our own backyard. The stakes are high, whether that be human rights, whether that be clean air or clean water, Baker said. We know the stakes are high and we have the tools to fight for a better world and systems change. So now we have an article on the case for going to war against climate change. This is from December 20th, 2021 in the Bulletin. When I became a climate activist in early 2019, I focused on the issues forefront of popular discourse: coal, cars, air travel, agriculture, and construction. I also addressed shipping because my hometown in Germany is home of one of the biggest ports in Europe. But as climate protests grew bigger, peaking at 1.4 million people in Germany alone in September that year, the discourse did not evolve at the same pace. The same basic facts are debated today. Solution implementation is just starting, and even the overdue COP26 climate conference in Glasgow did not bring about big change. As a security analyst, accustomed to working with soldiers of various backgrounds, I find the security perspective to be widely absent from the discourse. The climate crisis is here, and security professionals like me now must fully grasp the extent to which we are affected by it and what our role in solving it can be, because it directly intersects with our fundamental purpose. Security, remember, is what this is all about. We are not protecting the climate, we are protecting ourselves. The British military's Climate Change and Sustainability Strategic Approach, published in March, and the U.S. Intelligence Community reports, released in late October, offer a glimpse of how climate change will affect national security and what defense agencies must do in response. But even with this growing awareness, many security professionals are still moving too slowly on climate change. Its impacts on their work will be so profound that they cannot afford to start shifting gears only when politicians do so. They themselves must recognize the magnitude of the threat, advocate for adequate responses, and become agents of change. This is how ideology takes over, and you create whole industries based on a lie. But there it is. There's 2 books. I'm going to keep going to the books. Here's one, The Vision of the Anointed. I always recommend this one, Thomas Sowell. It explains exactly why these people, the intelligentsia, think that they owe it to the world because they're so smart to tell us how to live. And he, of course, is a genius, Thomas Sowell. Highly recommend. And then this one. Now, this allegedly is satire. Report from Iron Mountain on the possibility and desirability of peace. This came out in 1967, and supposedly a group of anonymous people got together and tried to figure out possibility and the desirability of peace. And I'm getting a little ahead of myself here, but I don't care. I'm gonna share this. So the substitutes for the function of war. Now it goes through what the functions of war are in here, but they maintain that war is necessary in order to keep the population down, so on and so forth. So the following substitute institutions, among others, have been proposed for consideration as replacements for the non-military functions of war. That they may not have been originally set forth for that purpose does not prelude or invalidate their possible application here. Economic, a comprehensive social welfare program, a giant open-ended space research program aimed at unreachable targets. Sound familiar? A permanent, ritualized, ultra-elaborate disarmament inspection system and variants of such a system. That's under the economic. But if you go to political, an omnipresent, virtually omnipresent international police force, that would be the peacekeepers. And then an established and recognized extraterrestrial menace could replace war. So again, an existential threat. It could be climate or it could be aliens. Now within here, it says that aliens won't work as well as climate. Sociological. It's here. I'm sorry. Let's see. There's no replacement for cultural. Oh, right here. Ecological, a comprehensive program of applied eugenics. So in order to keep the population down, applied eugenics, ectolife, artificial wombs, that sort of thing is eugenics. A modern, sophisticated form of slavery. Intensified environmental pollution. And they also talk about how they can speed up the process by polluting the environment so that it looks like climate change, natural disasters, and they manipulate everything, I'm telling you. I do not ask my colleagues, in or out of uniform, to join climate activists in the streets, though they are very welcome to do so. But security professionals must reframe today's hand-waving about climate and treat it as a military-style threat that requires immediate and decisive action. This is why people know that climate lockdowns are coming. They are going to, unfortunately, make it a war, and it's a war against ourselves. So it's a war that can never be won, and that's why it's perfect. The climate security connection. In 2020, when I saw U.S. National Guard helicopters rescuing people from California wildfires and Australian Navy vessels conducting amphibious evacuations from bushfire-ravaged beaches, I began to link my perspective as a climate activist to my work in education in the security field. The dangers of a great power war, real as they may be, remain hypothetical until the first shots are fired. The carbon levels in our atmosphere, on the other hand, grow day by day. Prove carbon's bad. I'm still waiting. They are closely watched but remain unchecked, not for lack of information, but for lack of leadership and willpower. This is a dilemma of securitizing climate change, of making a security community that for the last 20 years fought a global war on terror and was busy watching China, aware that it missed something big. This year again has seen heat records shattered and widespread destruction caused by extreme weather. Again, you can't prove that the climate change, or rather that carbon is causing extreme weather. In fact, if you look at solar geoengineering, that would be more likely to cause the extreme weather. And HAARP, about modifying weather. Our government has been able to do it since the 40s. It's out there. Humanity's desperate clinging to every drop of fossil fuel not only increases the frequency and intensity of such tragedies, but also ensures larger ones to come. Military mentality. In 2020, Prince Charles said, "We must now put ourselves on a warlike footing, approaching our action from the perspective of a military-style campaign." More recently, John Kerry, President Biden's climate envoy, said, "The world needs a wartime mentality to fight climate change. They weren't the first, but they are also onto something." Leaders could have reduced emissions while there was still time to limit global warming to the relatively safe level of 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial temperatures. It's all junk science. It's all made up. Like, what are you talking about? Again, Russia and Canada, if they got warmer, that's so much land opened up, because right now it's tundra and you can't grow on it. So tell me why warming is bad. Tell me. Their negligence led us to today's predicament, a civilization that cannot function without fossil fuels, and the massive exploitation of nature, which in turn threaten the very existence of civilization. A military mentality that can make uncomfortable but strategic decisions based on ends, ways, and means for the security of us all. Oh, for the greater good. I love hearing for the greater good. And that can deploy in an effective way the resources at our disposal in the sensible approach. Oops, that was not good. Some of the biggest investments in history were made for security purposes. To fight World War II, the United States, United Kingdom, Soviet Union, and their allies refocused their entire economies because political leaders recognized that they were facing existential threats. We have to refocus our entire economy towards megaregions, guys. Because we're facing an existential threat ourselves. We are the existential threat. Today, the world once again faces existential threats, but political leaders have not yet stood up to the task. Multiple voices have called for the climate effort akin to the Manhattan Project. I believe that idea has failed because it suggests an escape route, a miraculous technology that might change everything and allow for continued delay on climate action. That's what people say about geoengineering, by the way. These type of people. They don't want geoengineering because that's going to be an excuse to not be even more militant. But for such a massive effort to be put in motion, state-level actors would need to treat climate change as a security issue, the same way they treat war. This can be done by rhetorical escalation that preempts discourses of climate delay and emphasizes the non-negotiability of the threat. We are right, you are wrong. Scientific consensus, whatever the hell that means, says I'm right and you're wrong. That's all they got. Once established as a warlike threat, climate change can be addressed with the gravity, urgency, and resources it deserves. This is why everything that's going on that you see. This is Michigan Climate Action Network. It's unbelievable how many different government entities or groups or committees or what have you that have been created and jobs created for this climate lie. Our vision. By 2042, we will have established Michigan as a leader in equitable climate solutions and achieved durable, diverse, and widespread public support for a just transition, ensuring a sustainable home for all Michiganders. Geez, can you tell me what that means? Whole lot of freaking keywords there, though. Yeah, a just transition, sustainable home, diversity, equity. It's all there. It's all there. Implementing sustainability in major sports, the making of a green team. I went to this webinar. I posted it up. Again, it shows you exactly how the United Nations Sustainable Development is a Trojan horse, and it's taking over our economy without a shot fired. I didn't realize the Cavaliers were Dan Gilbert. They're owned by Dan Gilbert, who is also the person who owns half of Detroit and is a World Economic Forum contributor, and of course he's implementing sustainable development. But we got more on that later. More on Dan Gilbert, I mean. So this comes out of Michigan News Source. Allegations of ethical misconduct rock Michigan's Economic Development Corporation and Governor Whitmer's allies. This just came out January 13th, 2025. In September 2024, Michigan's Board of Ethics received a detailed 41-page sourced complaint from Tetta Hughes, a Michigan resident and law enthusiast. The complaint to the BOE by Hughes, supported by extensive documentation, alleges significant ethical violations and conflicts of interest involving two high-ranking executives appointed by Governor Whitmer to the MEDC. Randy Thelen, the CEO of The Right Place, and Tom Lutz, a board member of the Michigan Strategic Fund, as well as several union officials and affiliated organizations. Thelen and Lutz have both argued that the claims are unfounded. Now, Randy Thelen is the one that brought us Project Elephant, or Gotion, which I have an update on as well. But, of course, there's a conflict of interest. And the other person that's not involved in this dispute, is Bill Pink, Dr. Bill Pink from Ferris State University. Conflict of interest. He's on the executive committee for the MEDC. He's president of Ferris State University, and he was one of the people that were there to get the tax incentives pushed through for Gotion, so he's in on it. In a prior demonstration of her commitment to ethical oversight, Hughes filed a complaint with the BOE in September of 2023 to have them investigate Deborah Mikula, a Michigan Arts and Culture Council member, who was found to have violated state ethical rules by failing to rescue herself from voting on grants or organizations she was connected to, including the Michigan Library Association, which she serves as executive director. The September allegations from Hughes read like a script from a political drama, appointees allegedly using their dual roles as grantors and grantees to funnel millions into their organizations, all while taxpayers are left fitting the bill. From alleged quid pro quo transactions to opaque financial dealings, the complaint underscores how Hughes believes the public officers have been operating with one hand in the public till and the other firmly in their own cookie jar. Yes. The command system that we have. The BOE had initially scheduled the allegations for review during its September 5th meeting. However, the meeting was canceled due to the expected unavailability of the chair at the time. Around the same time that the BOE was supposed to take place, Michigan Democrats moved swiftly during the lame duck legislative session to authorize millions of dollars in continued funding for the MEDC's grants and corporate initiative programs, an effort that reportedly became a top priority for Governor Whitmer, according to a source close to the situation. The allegations from Hughes' complaint and supporting documents that she provided extend beyond ethics violations and conflicts of interest between just a handful of people. The source who sent Michigan News Source the information says that the complaint and occupying documents appear to expose a complex web of alleged embezzlement between unions, political organizations, super PACs, nonprofits, Governor Whitmer's campaign, and taxpayer funding flowing through the MEDC. Every which way, they tax us, they fine us, and then they take our money and they give it to whoever they want. When are we going to be done with this system? When? The Hughes complaint, although highlighting alleged misdeeds of Whitmer appointees, Thelen and Lutz also include two other Whitmer appointees, Stephen Fontenoy, a registered lobbyist, as well as executive director of a nonprofit, Michigan Association for Justice, and president of the Two Peninsulas Research Group, executive director of the nonprofit Michigan Association for Justice, probably climate justice. Hughes' complaint also sheds light on a broader network of unions, nonprofits, and political organizations tied to its alleged unlawful activities, including what Hughes says amounts to ethical violations, inappropriate conflicts of interest, and unlawful contracting public fund expenditures of MSF and MEDC. The two key individuals central to Hughes' allegations are Randy Thelen, CEO of The Right Place, and Tom Lutz, a board member of the MSF, which oversees MEDC funding. Hughes has accused them of violating prohibited conduct in the Ethics Act listed under MLC, which outlines standards of conduct for public officers and employees. The CEO of The Right Place joined the MEDC and the Michigan Strategic Fund Board in the spring of 2023. For background information on the organization, The Right Place secured $175 million grant funding and Renaissance Zone designated value at $540 million from the MEDC for Gotion project through SOAR. Hughes told Michigan News Source, Genentech CEO is the president of the board at the tax-exempt economic development corporation called The Right Place, where he determines The Right Place Inc.'s executive director, Randy Thelen's salary. Randy Thelen then appointed to the MEDC MSF board in April 2023. In the following months, he disclosed conflicts of interest and recused himself dozens of times. He voted in July 2024 to renew millions in Genentech's MSN funding, despite the fact that MSF Act prohibits funding organizations which have been found to falsify records. Union and nonprofit leaders from tax-exempt MRCC, SEIU, and MEA. Okay. I'm going to go to the next one. You get the point. They're corrupt. MEDC has a woeful record of failure. State development agency's job creation record is an embarrassment. January 17th, 2025. And this is mackinac.org. I think they do great work. Highly recommend. Is there a state agency with a worse track record than the MEDC? The MEDC tries to promote economic growth in Michigan by giving billions of dollars of taxpayer money to hand-picked corporations. Sometimes the MEDC brings a new company to the state. Sometimes it bargains to keep a company from leaving. New research shows that decision makers at the MEDC are failing, creating one job for every 11 promised. My colleague, James Hamann, has gone through all of the MEDC records. He pulled 20 years worth of headlines from the front pages of the Detroit Free Press and found every front page headline from 2000 to 2020, wherein the MEDC announced a new handout. He then analyzed how many jobs were promised and how many were actually created. In that 20-year span, the state promised 123,060 jobs would be created through various deals. According to official reports, only 10,889 jobs were created, not quite 9%. Of the deals announced, three times as many deals produced 0 jobs, 21, as those that met their goals, 6. How embarrassing. The MEDC is no stranger to embarrassment. The corporation recently found itself in hot water when a businesswoman who secured $20 million purchased a $4,500 coffee maker with the funds. The MEDC can obfuscate its abysmal record with complicated financing and eye-glazing descriptions, grants, incentives, tax increment financing, brownfield redevelopment, tax abatements, tax credits, tax freezes, etc. The state continuously rebrands its subsidy programs: Michigan Economic Growth Authority, Good Jobs for Michigan, Michigan Business Development Program, and Strategic Outreach and Attraction Reserve. But at the end of the day, MEDC jobs announcements are pixie dust, empty calories, sugar highs that do not increase prosperity for the state. Now, Smart Zone service areas. Discovered this, thought it was interesting. Smart Zone 5, of course, is Grand Rapids. And you have a few even up here in the UP, but nothing up here. I think it's because... I don't know why. I'll just keep my speculations to myself at this time. Michigan brings its smart cities together for statewide change, October 14th, 2019. Oh, this is one that I did not get to re-highlight. I had all this highlighted, all 98 tabs, and I had to redo them all. Startup City, Grand Rapids. Okay, you know what? I'll go up. Business centers from Silicon Valley to Tel Aviv to Seoul are racing to develop the autonomous future, trying to attract technology heavyweights, car companies, and rising startups. It's easy to understand why. According to a study by Strategy Analytics that was commissioned by Intel, self-driving vehicles are expected to create an annual revenue stream of $7 trillion by 2050. $7 trillion. And again, you cannot have autonomous self-driving vehicles and humans on the road together. You will not be driving by 2050 if they have their way. The so-called passenger economy is also expected to have ripple effects around the world, not the least of which is saving as many as 585,000 lives in just a decade, according to the study. These predictions assume that businesses will be able to build on the experience, established reliability, and safety record of companies steeped in the transportation business, something that will be intrinsic to achieving that autonomous future. That's where Michigan has the edge. The state is the #1 vehicle producer in the U.S., with 71 of the top 100 auto suppliers in North America headquartered within its borders. Michigan is where the moving assembly line was introduced by Henry Ford in 1913, the same year the Federal Reserve came to take over America. Turning what was a 12-hour process into a 2-hour and 30-minute task to build a car. Today, an automobile may have as many as 30,000 parts, over 250 computer processors, and rely on hundreds of different suppliers. Michigan companies understand how to work with each other and put it all together. It's not all about Detroit. International Data Corporation, IDC, recently named Ann Arbor as one of the winners in its Smart Cities North America Awards. Ann Arbor was singled out for its work coordinating connected and autonomous vehicles with public transit and mobility solutions, such as ride-sharing and ride-hailing services. The city is building out its fiber optic base and expanding its City Safety Vehicle to Infrastructure V2I project, deploying sensors and electronic equipment around the city to prevent accidents and save lives. Do you believe that? We have the smartest intersection in the world is in Detroit, and they say that it has to do with saving lives. It has nothing to do with all that data that they want to create a digital twin of you in the frickin' metaverse. No, they care about your life. Currently, Ann Arbor is expanding it to include 3,000 vehicles and a citywide network that will add pedestrian detection at mid-block crosswalks, including curve speed warning devices and add ice warning detection systems. It's part of a statewide expansion of the necessary transportation infrastructure that is using wireless DSRC, dedicated short-range communications, 5G. It's another way to say 5G. It'll be 6G if they can figure it out and get it rolled out, but that's 5G right now. Installations so that cars can talk to traffic lights and not only be warned about weather conditions down the road, but also communicate with other cars to convey information about accidents or congestion ahead. Such infrastructure projects are a recognition that you can't go autonomous alone, and that is bringing even more companies to Michigan to work on the future. One locus of such cooperation is Michigan's M-City, a 32-acre testing ground that is attracting companies large and small. M-City, probably a 15-minute city, was designed to accommodate testing of everything from advanced video and communication systems in autonomous cars to cutting-edge technologies like solar-state LiDAR. The center offers unique expertise and weather conditions that can't be found in southern climates, which is why French companies are there test driving self-driving cars. Startup City, Grand Rapids. To be sure, the attraction of so many potential business partners in the state has generated its own startup culture. Just a quarter of the size of Detroit, Grand Rapids has become the de facto information technology and startup locus for Michigan. It's here where entrepreneurs will find Start Garden, an accelerator that matches tech startups with established local businesses like Steelcase to speed manufacturing up. Conversely, the active startup scene has, in turn, attracted established tech firms to support the growth. Amidst all this renewed growth, Michigan hasn't lost sight of the original goal of encouraging smart cities and towns to create a better quality of life. Some of the initiatives will naturally help make communities more livable. An Intel and Juniper report on smart cities discovered, for example, that building such intelligent communities can have significant impact on the quality of life, giving people back as many as 125 hours a year. That's time that was once lost commuting or sitting in traffic, time that can now be spent with family and friends. There are also active programs in Michigan to improve daily life and sustainability of individual communities. As part of the continued revitalization of urban areas, the Michigan Urban Farming Initiative is turning around neglected neighborhoods and attracting people who want to work on and live in sustainable communities. It's been turning neighborhoods into agrihoods, where community gardens produce over 300 varieties of vegetables that are free for residents and are also donated to food pantries and local churches. The final piece of the smart city future is more intelligent healthcare. Fortunately, the numerous state academic institutions are working on short and long-term solutions. The Michigan Institute for Data Science at the University of Michigan, for example, is working with Peers Health to apply cutting-edge machine learning to a global database of millions of anonymized disability compensation cases. The goal of the project is to uncover and understand what treatments and programs work best for patients, and then apply those lessons to help people get back on their feet. It's all part of the realization that in the coming interconnected world, it will not only take smart cities, but also intelligent local communities, as well as smart statewide infrastructure efforts to get to the autonomous future to deliver sustainable growth and a better quality of life, of course. Redevelopment ready communities, something that is going on here in Michigan, is basically you can get your little community ready for sustainable development. You can be a good little boy or girl and get certified if you want. Drive less, use less energy, switch to electric vehicles, says Grand Rapids Climate Action Plan. Plan aims to reduce emissions by 85% by 2030 and 100% by 2040. Now again, my buddies that I play games with, they don't know anything about 2030 and 2050. I'm like, you hear it everywhere, right? Like, doesn't it make you wonder, where did the number come from? Where do the plans come from? Like, United Nations, man, United Nations. Michigan's second largest city wants its residents to drive less, switch to electric vehicles, and use less energy. The city of Grand Rapids climate plan uses the amount of greenhouse gases emitted by municipal operations in 2008 as its benchmark. The plan will try to reduce community greenhouse gas emissions by 62.8% per capita by 2030, with 2019 as the benchmark. The plan has 6 chapters: energy, more solar use; healthy homes, less electric use; income-based electric rates; commercial buildings, less energy use; transportation, more carpooling and cycling; denser developments. This is everywhere. This is Maui, Lahaina, this is North Carolina. This is everywhere in the United States. Just Michigan has a lot of resources, so that's why the World Economic Forum came here first. One of its 16 headquarters around the world is in Detroit. City residents create emissions by heating their home and business, driving for work and their family, and going shopping. The plan aims to retire the city fleet and replace it with electric vehicles, pilot a city e-bike fleet with charging infrastructure, and train or hire specialized technicians to service city fleet EVs. The plan aims for 5% of all existing residential buildings to reduce energy by 20%. Existing residential buildings. So there's a new building code, came out in 2021 and 23. And now they are just starting to implement it because FEMA dumped a bunch of money over to our regulatory body here in Michigan. Got an article on it. It also calls for new residential buildings and it also calls for all new residential buildings and 1% of existing buildings to meet the International Energy Conservation Code of 2018, and for all new residential buildings and 11% of existing buildings to switch to electric heat each year. Grand Rapids is accepting feedback on the Climate Action Plan through February 17th. So, again, if you live in Grand Rapids and you want to make your voice heard, I highly recommend it. The link will be down below, but I'm sure you can look up Grand Rapids Climate Action Plan feedback and you can find a link. Fruits and vegetables grown in urban farms and gardens have an average carbon footprint 6 times greater than that of conventionally produced produce. A 2024 University of Michigan study concluded. So your backyard garden is way worse than I can't even think of a big farm besides Tyson, but that's meat. Instead of squandering time and limiting tax dollars on ineffective climate programs, city officials in Grand Rapids would better serve taxpayers and residents by concentrating on fundamental issues. Crime prevention, they're working on that. Reliable and affordable utility services, road maintenance, and education. They're working on all of that, just not in the way that we want. It's all implementing the Internet of Things, the Fourth Industrial Revolution, into each of these systems. Data. Climate Action and Adaptation Plan is a roadmap for how the community of Grand Rapids will reduce greenhouse gas emissions and prepare for the impacts of climate change on our people, environment, and infrastructure. Grand Rapids community-wide science-based targets will only be made possible with community buy-in and preceding action. They need our consent. They always have, they always will. That's why they tell us their plans. They need our consent. And that could just mean your silence, right? If you know about it, they put it out there, and you're silent about it, that's your silent consent, man. The city will act as a leader for this work by modeling emissions reductions in municipal facilities and fleet, and they're going to model these emissions using digital twin. All the data they're gathering and creating a twin inside the metaverse, inside the computer. There will be a little Michelle inside the computer that will even go and play video games, an AI version of me, will go play video games against other people and no one will know that it's not me, that it's not a human. That's, again, the internet, man. It's dead. You don't know what is created by AI anymore, and it might have been like that for some time, but now we know about AI. It's been released to the public, and so it's being used way too much. We're outsourcing our thinking to AI. Topic for another day. Advocate for legislative and regulatory changes. So, again, whatever we want doesn't really matter. They're going to push. And they've brainwashed the youth in order to believe that if they don't do something, that we're all going to die. And that's ultimately, I feel bad for our youth. So right now we are in the plan development, incorporating public feedback and drafting the plan, public engagement on draft, community workshops, and an online survey. You come right here, you can read the plan, which is very long, and you can give your input. So I will have it linked down below. I'll try to put it at the top for you. Energy systems action examples. So identify existing education resources and organizations in community and create a single education platform on all energy systems. This is just one of the goals. Update the city zoning ordinance to remove zoning barriers in all districts for on-site solar. Identify and support active community hubs to transition to resilience hub prioritizing NOFs. Increase the community's participation in rulemaking, rate cases, affordable energy, and other MPSC decisions. Educate interested parties on opportunities to purchase renewable energy credits or carbon offsets, as well as other renewable energy contracting options like virtual power purchase agreements. Create a solarized program to educate on solar options, leverage solar tax credits, and offer group buy-in. Again, work collaboratively with stakeholders such as trade unions, schools, universities, community-based organizations, and utilities to form a green career task force to pair career development and contractor training programs with training curriculums on green technology and trades with a focus on serving vulnerable communities. Again, this is all part of the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. And no one really voted for that, did we? We didn't vote for any of this. Feedback mostly opposes Grand Rapids Climate Plan. I'll take a sip of water really quick. So, they've already taken some feedback. I did a video on the Grand Rapids Climate Plan last year. I think it was November, maybe September, somewhere in there, in the fall. And so far, the feedback, thankfully, has been mostly opposing these plans. Most of the feedback given to Grand Rapids Climate Action Plan opposes it, according to public comment received through a records request, because of course, our government is not transparent. You have to beg for information. The Wedge Foundation pitched the plan for Michigan's second largest city, which houses about 200,000 people. More than half of the public comments opposed one or more parts of the 6-chapter plan. Of the 42 public comments submitted to the city of Grand Rapids, 22 responses opposed parts of the draft plan, while 18 supported it, and 2 gave mixed feedback. The plan spans 6 chapters, which I already went over. The plan aims to reduce energy consumption by requiring building owners to report their energy use, creating building performance standards, and using tune-ups, audits, or retro commissioning. One respondent wrote, "It appears to be a feel-good, virtue signaling exercise undertaken by highly uninformed people without any appreciation for physics, economics, or common sense. That such a group has the chance of gaining effectively taxing authority through the city of Grand Rapids, en route to assessing fees to tax-paying, service-providing business owners, simply because we exist and house every business that makes the city of Grand Rapids function economically and socially, is shocking." Another feedback welcomed the plan and said it didn't go far enough. Okay. We are in a climate emergency. You see, the people that think that this is an existential threat, I understand why they act the way they do, but they believe in a lie. And that is why lies are the root to all evil in this world. We are in a climate emergency, and the Department of Sustainability are the city's emergency response team, the person wrote. It's time to be more aggressive and advocate for change, like our lives depend on it, because in this case, unfortunately, it does. Poor person. No, it doesn't. You don't need to have carbon tax and give all your sovereignty away to the state or the New World Order. Okay? You don't need to. The money partially funded the salaries of climate change workers and pilot projects. The Wedge Foundation has spent $2 million over 5 years trying to get the city of Grand Rapids to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and encourage electrification, according to documents obtained through a record request. The money partially funded the salaries of climate change workers and pilot projects. The funding paid the salary of a healthy and sustainable buildings policy specialist and the nonprofit community collaboration on climate change, among other things. The Grand Rapids 2030 District is a program of the U.S. Green Building Council of West Michigan, launched in 2015, which, again, the United Nations came to America, to New York City, and made UN Agenda 2030 in 2015. They launched in 2015 in partnership with the City of Grand Rapids, funded by the Wedge Foundation. If I'm saying it wrong, was it Weege? I'm just whatever, it doesn't matter. The GR 2030 is one of the 3 districts in Michigan, along with Ann Arbor and Detroit, and one of 22 across North America. The GR 2030's work decarbonizes buildings and transportation as aligned with the goals of the Paris Climate Accord. And again, they mean UN Agenda 2030. Michigan legislature gave cover to GM MEDC on tax credits. The legislator went as far as to enact laws to enable the amount given to GM a secret. So the Michigan legislature helped the MEDC and General Motors conceal the amount of taxpayer dollars Michigan gives GM in the form of corporate welfare. This was all the way back in July of 2022, but because I was looking at MEDC corruption, it popped up. The foundation had argued that the tax credit agreement does more than wipe out the company's tax liability in the hope that GM does not leave the state. Instead, the agreement uses a device known as refundable tax credit to give the company money. The exact amount is based on a formula involving the number of employees retained and their compensation and their benefits. Who made the formula? When GM shows it has earned more than its tax liability, the state, Michigan taxpayers, thank you for putting that in there, will pay the company the difference. General Motors subsequently disclosed it will receive up to $3.8 billion. The state says it will most likely be paying on the agreement until 2030. The Mackinac Center Legal Foundation brief asked questions such as what politicians are receiving campaign contributions from subsidy recipients or their executives. Is that influencing whether the agreements get modified and in what matter? The MEDC must report to the legislature how much the company receives. Only a few elected officials and agency employees are allowed to see how much corporate welfare is doled out to the company. Transparency, man, for the win. To emphasize the secretive nature of the deal, the legislator created a $5,000 penalty for anyone who leaks the information to the public. The opposite of transparency. Shut up or you're going to pay a fine. GM had income of $59 billion between the years 2014 and 2020. But hey, we need to give them $3 billion of us little teeny tiny taxpayers, right? That's why public-private partnerships, public money, private profits. Win-win for the fascists. State gave company $1.4 million to choose Michigan after it had already chosen. January 17th, 2025. 3 months after an automotive company started construction on a factory in Grand Rapids, suburb of Wyoming, the state's Economic Development Agency granted it $1.4 million. The MEDC said the money helped the recipient choose Michigan. German company Benetier Motor had, however, already bought the property for the $100 million plant, and it was reported in September 4th. The state has paid $4.6 billion since 2023 in corporate subsidies in the name of job creation. Political conflict of interest between local officials and Chinese-linked Gotion rattle Michigan suit. This is just the news, came out September 23rd of 2024. So we're going to get into some Gotion news. The Michigan township that turned against a planned battery plant project led by a China-tied company and is now being sued over their decision, alleged in court filings that former board trustees failed to disclose conflicts of interest and apparent inducements to approve the controversial project. The allegations filed last week are poised to shake up battery maker Gotion's lawsuit against the Green Charter Township and its new board, which moved to reverse efforts by the previous trustees to facilitate the firm's plans to build an electric vehicle battery plant in the community. The new board's efforts, Gotion claims, violate a development agreement signed between it and the township last year. So right now they're still in court, and Chen Li, the young global leader of the World Economic Forum, the billionaire from Hefei, China, the one that owns Gotion, has to be deposed. And he tried to fight it, but the court ruled that you have to if you want to move forward. So right now, we don't know if Chen Li is actually going to give a deposition or if he's going to bail out of the project because he doesn't want to come here and deal with our court system. Fine by me, don't. Just leave Gotion and never come back. However, citing text messages and testimony uncovered and now part of the lawsuit, the township argues the development agreement with Gotion is void, in part because of conflicts of interest from former board members that were undisclosed when the agreement was supposedly approved. The court filings show that at least 2 former board members stood to receive financial benefits from Gotion while it was seeking approval for its project. According to text message attached to the filing last Friday, a senior Gotion executive offered Jim Chapman, the then supervisor of Green Charter Township, to a trip to Hefei, China. Another former board trustee stood to benefit financially from the sale of land to Gotion for the plant and failed to disclose that conflict when he voted to approve the preliminary development agreement with the company. The Gotion battery plant deal came under scrutiny from locals almost immediately after it was announced publicly in September of 2022. Locals were worried for several reasons, citing the environmental impacts and disruption to their community. But one of the most important and controversial reasons was Gotion's ties to China, and specifically the Chinese Communist Party. The filings of the court seem to reveal that PRC-based and CCP-tied Gotion will stop at nothing to get their way, including what appears to be corrupt practices and enrichment of public officials. From the outset, this has had all the markings of a subnational incursion and influence operation led by PRC-based and CCP-tied entities and operatives, Stella told Just the News. Allegations and conflict of interest. According to the township, the court filings and attached exhibits show the development agreement between Gotion and the previous board should be void, in part because of the inducements and conflicts of interest uncovered during the lawsuit. On the same day that the township board was set to review and approve the preliminary development agreement, text messages show a Gotion senior executive, Chuck Thelen, by the way, the one that we were just discussing, Chuck Thelen. Oh, I lost my place. Sorry, guys. Text message show, yes, Chuck Thelen offered Chapman a fully paid trip to Hefei, China, where Gotion's parent company, Gotion High-Tech Power Energy, is headquartered and runs its Engineering Research and Development Institute. Michigan law makes it illegal for a public officer or employee to solicit or accept a gift or loan of money, goods, services, or other things of value for the benefit of a person or organization, other than the state, which tends to influence the manner in which the public officer or employee or another public officer or employee performs official duties. By the way, Gotion will pay for your travels if you are able to visit Hefei. Gotion's North American Vice President for Manufacturing, Chuck Thelen, wrote in a message to Chapman on August 1st, 2023. The court exhibit shows Chapman did not immediately respond to the message. However, 2 days later, Chapman said, "Please let your chairman know that I am honored by his invitation. Unfortunately, ongoing issues in my township preclude me from being absent for this trip." But Thelen proposed rescheduling the trip as a way to try and keep the heat of public scrutiny off the local politicians. Gotcha. We are seeing many people that can't get visas in time. Might reschedule for January after things settle down. Keep the heat off you and other politicians. Would that help? Thelen asked. Yes, Chapman wrote. My visa is long expired. Chapman did not respond to an email request from Just the News for comment Monday. I have never accepted any enticement of any kind from Gotion or any other group. Gotion considered a trip to see their plant for a group of local people. I was on the list, but chose not to go. The trip never happened, Chapman told Just the News in an email after publication. The township's multiple legal firms are grasping at straws to justify their multiple attorney bills. They will continue to generate useless paperwork until they bankrupt this small rural township for their own gain. The current administration will continue to use township funds to pay for this useless paperwork because it placates their political base in an election year, he wrote. If you actually go back, you can read all of the comments back and forth. Oh, the disdain they have for the people around here. My neighbors. The people that are supposed to be their neighbors, right? So Gotion has all this disdain, and Jim Chapman had all this disdain and hatred for the racist, xenophobic people, they're his own constituents, Jim Chapman's. And so why do you want to be here? And you're bankrupting Gotion. You're bankrupting the township. Go away. Leave us alone. Don't say the board is doing it. Don't put it on the David, Mr. Goliath, even though Chuck Thelen calls himself the David. It is unclear, right here, by the way, these two documents right here will show you all the text messages. So, I mean, they call xenophobic, racist, they call Lori Brock, who has been fighting this, Gotion since the beginning as well, as far as I'm aware. They call her a skank, and they go through her divorce paperwork and stuff. I mean, it's just nuts. It's like, why do you guys want to be here? Gotion, go away. It is unclear if Chapman ever took a trip to China, paid for by Gotion, but by this time, Chapman and the rest of the Green Charter Township Board were under threat of a recall brought by the local voters upset with the board's decision to help Gotion secure land and construct its factory without their input. By November, voters would oust Chapman and the rest of the 5-member board for their positions. However, that did not stop Gotion Thelen from doing all he could to help his close partner, Chapman, retain his seat. You know, and that explains a lot about when the second board meeting I've ever been to, the second supervisor for a township I ever met was Jim Chapman. And I just couldn't believe how he looked down upon, again, the people he was supposed to be a voice for. You know, it was a shock to see how corrupt and captured even a small township board can be. 3,000 people in the Green Charter Township, and it's captured and corrupt. Well, it was. It may or may not be now. I haven't been back, so I'm not going to get into that. But the Republicans did take over, and they are helping with this whole thing, and they're using the China angle rather than the environmental angle because Republicans and Democrats are both implementing Agenda 21. But I digress. On August 14th, 2023, shortly after the old board had approved a preliminary development agreement pending further negotiations, Thelen sent a message to Chapman asking how he and his wife could donate to the Supervisor's Defense Fund in the midst of the recall. Hi Jim, Tracy, and I would like to donate to your defense fund. Do you take Venmo? Thelen wrote. I think I heard you say the limit is $1,200 that you can accept from a single donor. Is that correct? $1,200 is a limit. I'm set up through PayPal. I have a QR code. Chapman wrote back and attached the QR code to his message. Campaign finance records show Chuck Thelen's wife, Tracy, donated $1,000 to Chapman's defense fund that same day. Wow, thank you, Chapman wrote that evening. The least we could do, Jim, Thelen wrote back. You have my back. You have had my back. Now it's my turn to help. Thelen did not respond to a request for comment from Just the News Monday. It's called democracy, Chapman said, the Detroit News last December, after he was removed by voters in a recall. It is what it is. You know, Chapman did say, I don't make the rules, just play by them or something like that. God, he was so unbelievable. Again. Corrupt. Another Green Charter Township trustee, Dale Jernstadt, stood to benefit financially from approving the development agreement. In fact, the court finally showed he owned a property in the planned project zone and testified that Gotion offered him and his brother $2 million for their approximately 70-acre property. I think it was like crazy 200% increase. I don't know. Crazy amount that was offered. Way more than what it was worth, of course. And then, of course, it's our taxpayer dollars that is paying for it. The court filings indicate that at least one other board trustee testified that Chapman discussed potential jobs with Gotion if the board lost their recall election against the community challengers. Former trustee Denise McFarland said in her deposition that there might have been discussion about a job with Gotion. After losing his recall election, Chapman also continued his relationship with Gotion, offering pro bono services to the company with his security consulting firm, Redoubt Protection Inc., in early 2024. However, Chapman testified he has never received any compensation for his work. Yeah. He's just a bootlicker for free. Give me a break. Yep, that's the same one. Sorry, I doubled that up. Gotion, are you for or against it? They stopped taking submissions. This was January 3rd, 2025. 8,786 people voted. 7,605 people said no, they do not want Gotion here. They are against Gotion. So, leave Gotion and never come back. The people here don't want you. Why do you want to be here if we don't want you? President of EV battery maker to be deposed by Mid-Michigan Township. Came out October 9th, 2024. Chen Li, the president of Chinese electric battery maker Gotion, will be deposed by the lawyers of Green Charter Township, a small Michigan community outside of Big Rapids. This is after a federal court denied a motion Gotion filed to avoid having its president deposed. In addition, the federal judge ruled that Gotion must overturn internal documents. Gotion must produce plans, schematics, drawings, depictions, and renderings regarding the development of the project, according to court documents. And that is what we, the people, have wanted that live in this area since the plan was exposed or, announced. That's the right word. Since the plan was announced, we just want to know what exactly you're doing, Gotion. And you have not been transparent whatsoever. And in fact, you've done everything we've seen in the text messages. The complete disregard for the people. Gotion battery plant loses support from Michigan County Board. So, the Mecosta County Board of Commissioners has rescinded support of a controversial electric battery plant near Big Rapids. A newly elected commission. Do you see what happens here? As of right now, the people still have a teeny tiny bit of power, although the state government is trying to take that away with the zoning, wind and solar zoning. But we have some power left. We can replace the board. Now, the problem is, when we do replace the board, can they stand up to the corruption, or will they be captured as well? A newly elected commission voted 5-2 during its January 2nd meeting to adopt a resolution to formally withdraw any endorsements, commitments, and assistance for Gotion Inc.'s $2.36 billion battery plant in Green Charter Township. The decision walks back a previous February 16, 2023 resolution that expressed the county's support for the project that's expected to create 2,350 jobs, which we now know that's BS. The newest resolution says significant new information and developments have emerged concerning the project. The Gotion plant faced pushback. It's become a political lightning rod with Republican Michigan lawmakers, yes. But here's the thing. It was a grassroots movement first, and the Republicans came in to help, or came in to hijack it for their own political gains. I don't know. In 2023, voters also recalled Green Charter Township board members and replaced them with anti-Gotion candidates. So, we the people are speaking as much as we can. Schools use facial recognition to track students around buildings to keep them safe. So now let's get into some schools. That's all I have on Gotion for now. I will keep you guys updated. If Chen Li does his deposition, that would be exciting stuff to watch, I think, personally. American schools are increasingly turning to facial recognition technology and surveillance cameras to keep students safe. Oh, by the way, this comes out of the Midwesterner, December 27th, 2024. Cheyenne Mountain School District in Colorado Springs, Colorado, has deployed 400 cameras across its school to monitor who is on campus or attempting to access it, according to the Denver Post. The system uploads photos of students to match with individuals or is searchable for clothing or looks. More and more school districts are talking about it, Hansen told the paper. With many of these new technologies, like AI biometrics, there are great upsides and some significant potential downsides. We don't think that the potential benefits, and there is not a whole lot of data to prove those exist, outweigh the harms not only to privacy, but also the general safety and comfort and ease that students should get to feel in the place they spend the vast majority of their youth, said Robinson, a policy strategist. I want to say strategist of Colorado ACLU. The federal government is accelerating the pace. After shooting, MSU added AI surveillance to detect threats, count people. Plans for nearly $10 million in security system upgrades at Michigan State University following last year's deadly campus shooting include a new video system that will use artificial intelligence to enhance surveillance. Omnicast video software, created by a California-based firm called Gentech, uses analytics to detect barrier breaches, track individuals as they move across campus, count crowd size, and read vehicle license plates, among other things, according to more than 1,200 pages of bidding and contract documents obtained by Bridge, Michigan through a Freedom of Information request. That includes $2.9 million for equipment. Oh, it's $5.2 million purchase order. $2.9 million for equipment, $1.8 million to license Gentech unified security platform. Now, again, this unification of everything, right? Our healthcare system, in Michigan, it used to be Muskegon had an area, Grand Rapids had an area, I think Lansing, and then Detroit. Now they're all connected. So now one hacker can take out all of the state's healthcare infrastructure. Great. And then we're going to do that too, a unified security platform. All the colleges. You can just hack the college cameras. You know, people that have cameras in their house, like my nephew, I love you, but you have a camera sitting on your kitchen table. It's like anybody can hack that, bro, and look at you and your wife. It's just weird that people are so accepting of cameras everywhere. To me, it's weird. The university is also building a new security operations center where law enforcement officials will be able to monitor video cameras, alarms, and other equipment in real time. Combined, the projects are expected to cost $9.8 million. The university has more than 2,000 cameras across its campus and is working to add 200 more. The planned upgrades were already in the works before last year's campus shooting, in which a lone gunman killed 3 students. Among other things, it took police nearly 3 hours to comb through a sprawling campus camera system to find images of the shooter to share with the public during the ongoing community-wide manhunt. Meanwhile, students had sheltered in place as terror gripped the campus. Unlike most Michigan colleges, MSU lacked a unified system to review live feed cameras or quickly pull up footage in the wake of shootings at Berkey Hall and the Student Union, authorities said at the time. The ongoing technology overhaul will give MSU those capabilities and more through a combination of new equipment and software that will utilize artificial intelligence. Among other things, the new system will monitor doors, elevators, and other parts of the campus in real time, with the ability to automatically verify card access picture ID against live video of an individual attempting to enter the building. Surveillance state. License plate reader cameras will be able to track vehicles across campus and add suspect vehicles to a hot list. Now, again, all this data is being gathered and is making a digital twin of your car, of you, of everything you do. It's going to be in the metaverse, in the digital world, so that they can use it and manipulate it, right? They can say, oh, what happens if we did this to Michelle, the digital twin of Michelle? And they do it all in the digital world, and they can create legislation, or they can do marketing a lot of times, right? They want to market to you, but it's just too much power. This data, being centralized as it is too much power. We are in so much trouble because of it. The Gentech system that Moss will install must be configured to automatically focus security cameras on perimeter breaches and detect or track specified objects or stopped vehicles, according to the documents. A people counter function using deep learning models trained on person detection will allow cameras to automatically count crowd numbers. The system, which can differentiate between adults and children, and even people in wheelchairs, allows authorities to monitor the counts on a live dashboard. That technology will help police ensure safety and security at large campus events by being able to assess the overall population on campus, says White with the Department of Public Safety. Troy District's teacher contract discourages parents' visit to the classroom. Michigan law, by contrast, recognizes the role parents play. This came out January 15th, 2025, in CapCon, Michigan Capital Confidential, once again. The Troy School District adopted a new union contract with its teachers that limits and overtly discourages parents from visiting classroom. The provisions were put in place during the same time frame when the mother of a second grade student sought but was denied permission to observe her child in the classroom. This is part of that "you will own nothing and be happy. Not even your children are yours, the children are the state's." There's no private property, and there's no nuclear family in this world that they're building. Michigan Capital Confidential previously reported on Michelle Malinsky's, a former teacher and mother of a child with dyslexia, who was denied a request to observe her child in the classroom this school year. Her goal was to better understand her students' reading interventions. The district adopted a new collective bargaining agreement in June of 2024, as reported by the Oakland Press, though the contract was not disclosed on the district's website until December. A new section in the agreement makes it harder for parents to visit their child's classroom. Under the classroom visits provision, it actively discourages parental visits. A parent can only visit the classroom once per academic year for no more than 30 minutes unless the school officials agree to it. What are they hiding? It's not the state's kid. It's not the school's child. It's the parent's child. Another contact provision states that parents are not allowed to take written notes while observing the classroom. So much control. The new language deterring parents from the classroom appears to conflict with state law. The Michigan Revised School Code states that parents and guardians have a right to be present, to be a reasonable degree and at a reasonable time, and subject to reasonable restrictions, controls, and limits. The contract could confuse parents about what they may do. Michigan law is clear that parents have the right to observe what is going on in their child's classroom, Stevie Deely, an expert on government transparency at the Mackinac Center for Public Policy, told CapCon. Unfortunately, these new restrictions create artificial and unnecessary barriers that make it far more difficult for parents to know what their children are being taught. Parents shouldn't have to jump through hoops to be engaged with their child's education. Malinsky, and the Troy School District parent told journalist Dave Bondi in an interview that Troy School District sends a message that it does not view parents as a partner in their students' academic success. All right, parents, you are not meant to educate. That's what the state's for. That's for the propaganda. Michigan man could face $1.7 million fine for expanding his own pond. And this goes back to the command economy that we are living under. He owns this land. He did what he wanted on his land. He even asked if he needed a permit. They said no, and now he's in trouble. In March 2023, an anonymous person complained to the Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Eagle, claiming the excavation might cause a drainage issue for a nearby road. Might cause a drainage issue. On May 16, 2023, Zach said that agency officials knocked on the door of Josh, who was asleep. Then they accessed his property and pond without permission, Zach said. But guess what? It's legal. It's legal because of the environment, because of wetlands. It's like you have no private property rights because of the environmental industrial complex. They can just do whatever the hell they want. They can put an EV battery component facility, factory, whatever, on the second largest river in Michigan without our permission, without asking us, but you can't on your property dig it a little deeper, your pond. It's like Morley, right? There's a dam in Morley. They've been trying since like 2010, 2008 to rebuild that dam because it's crumbling. Well, of course, Eagle's not going to let them, and eventually the dam will crumble, and then there won't be a Morley pond, which is really all Morley has, and celebration on the pond happens. Like, it's a key staple for the little teeny township of Morley. Or is it a village? The village of Morley, yes. And so, yeah, that basically, it's just, we can do whatever we want to do, and we use the wetlands as an excuse. That's what I'm trying to say. The environmental agency says it's lawfully investigated an alleged violation of Section 30314 of the Wetland Protection Act, as well as Part 301 Inland Lakes and Streams of the Natural Resources Environmental Protection Act. These are all just ways to violate private property. And that, again, how do you own nothing and be happy? It's about taking away private property. The agency is allowed, officials said, to enter premises suspected of causing an imminent threat to the public health or environment, or if it has reasonable cause that the wetland is a water of the United States as the term is used in the Federal Water Pollution Control Act. By all accounts that I've heard from both sides, I believe Brian Marshall followed the department's long-standing practice and the law when accessing your brother's property for the purposes of responding to a complaint of a potentially substantial violation, Sanders wrote. He attempted to contact someone at the house by knocking at the door, and then proceeded to inspect non-curtilage portions of the property for reported violations. That method of access is a requirement of our assumption of the federal regulatory program, occurs thousands of times a year across the state, and has not resulted in adverse court rulings to date. Of course not, because the courts are captured. Our whole country is freaking captured. Unfortunately, we have been unable to resolve the discovered violation through voluntary means, as the documents in Me Enviro demonstrate. Eagle will not comment on ongoing enforcement negotiations except to correct those errors of fact. It is not accurate to state that Mr. Wenslick is being told to restore the property to its previous condition, i.e. fill the pond. It is also inaccurate to say Eagle has provided no factual basis for the change in status to a regulated wetland. Anyone accused of conducting unpermitted construction activities in a wetland can face daily fines of up to the law firm of $10,000, according to a Foster, Swift, Collins, and Smith. If Eagle started levying the maximum fine since July 1st, 2024, the penalty will have already reached more than $1.7 million. Now, a small village farther north actually had the same kind of conundrum that Morley has, and they just saved up money and they fixed the dam themselves without the permits from Eagle, and they got fined $10,000 a day for 8 months, I think, because they fixed their own dam with their own money. They didn't even ask the Fed for money. Michigan's environmental agency has an almost unquestionable authority regarding wetland issues, said Jason Hayes, Director of Energy and Environmental Policy at the Mackinac Center for Public Policy. They have demonstrated this power in situations like the Hart Enterprises case, where the agency was able to effectively ignore the input of a former Michigan DNR water quality specialist and employ what they refer to as a judgment call to carry out an 8-year-long legal battle to stop the simple expansion of a parking lot in an industrial area, Hayes wrote. In this story, they appear willing to arbitrarily and unilaterally stop a property owner from restoring their private property from a former mine site into a thriving pond ecosystem that benefits wildlife. Regardless of what efforts a property owner may have employed to protect or improve the natural environment, and regardless of support and help from elected officials, Eagle has once again chosen to gum up the process with threats of fines and legal action. Well, that's how the state works, right? By force. Local government coalition sues to stop Public Service Commission's sitting order. December 26, 2024. A fight is brewing over control of wind and solar sites. Oh, this is one of them that I didn't get to, I guess. Coalition of 79 townships and counties has sued the Michigan Public Service Commission and the State Court of Appeals, seeking to stop from overriding local control of large-scale wind and solar projects. Local governments involved in the coalition want to see the order paused while an appeal against the commission filed November 8th is adjudicated. The conflict between locals and the state developed after Governor Gretchen Whitmer signed into law Public Act 233 of 2023, which changed the balance of power between state and local governments. And she did that because We, the people of Michigan, are fighters. We're aware. Michiganders know what's going on, and we keep telling them over and over and over, we don't want it. And so because she wants to put in what she wants to put in, well, really, she got her marching orders from Davos, right? The World Economic Forum, one of the very few governors that have been over there. So she has marching orders. She needs to put in these solar panels and wind turbines, and the people need to get out of her way. She is working hard for those globalists, guys. Before PA 233, local governments regulated the scope of renewable energy project based on community needs and support. Local governments have a long-standing responsibility to ensure that developments align with their unique priorities. Amid outcry, solar farm owner says it no longer wants Michigan forest to expand. So here's just one such thing that happened. So January 6, 2025, state officials hope to lease 420 acres of state land outside Gaylord to expand a solar energy project being planned on private land nearby. Area lawmakers responded with fury, calling for firings within the Department of Natural Resources. The company involved in the solar project is now distancing itself from the plan to use state land. A proposal to lease 420 acres of state land near Gaylord for a solar energy development is on shaky ground after attracting criticism from lawmakers, including for calls for mass firings of state employees involved in the plan. The DNR will issue a public notice Tuesday of its intent to lease the property in Hayes Township, just west of Gaylord, said Scott Whitcomb, director of the agency's Public Lands Office. The proposal drew immediate outrage from lawmakers who argue state forests should be off limits to solar developments. Clearly, DNR has lost sight of their original mission of protecting our natural resources, Borton told Bridge in a Monday interview. By Monday afternoon, RWE was distancing itself from the project. RWE is not seeking to lease state-owned land for this project, company spokesperson Patricia Kakardias said in an email to Bridge. The fight exemplifies the growing tensions in Michigan and nationally as climate crisis fuels an energy transition that will require vast quantities of land for wind and solar farms. In Michigan, Democrat lawmakers last year passed legislation requiring utilities to achieve 100% clean energy by 2040. To meet that mandate, Michigan may need to devote another 209,000 acres to wind and solar energy. We're going to show you what that looks like here in a second. In turn, state officials have evaluated state land for renewable development. Whitcomb said the DNR could ultimately lease up to 4,000 acres, less than 1/10% of the 4.6 million publicly owned acres under its care. 4.6 million publicly owned acres. But developing state forests for clean energy comes with climate trade-offs. Trees are a known carbon sink, and logging them to install solar panels can sometimes cancel out the climate gains. What does that mean? They are a known carbon sink. It means that this place is intelligently designed, right? I breathe out, the trees breathe in. The trees breathe out, I breathe in. Greenhouse gas. How can greenhouse gas be anti-green? The DNR would use proceeds from any solar lease to buy more land nearby. Borton, the Gaylord area lawmaker, said he supports the timber industry and has no problem with the oil and gas drill rigs that dot state land near his home. But he objects to solar farms on state land because he views them as more destructive to habitat and public access. This is going to permanently, for many, many years, destroy the property's ability to be enjoyed by sportsmen and by wildlife. And that's what we have. We have a lot of sportsmen here in Michigan. This is, I believe, the Mojave Desert. I don't know exactly, but it looks like the Mojave Desert where I lived for 4.5, 5 years. We don't need the sound on there. But look at that. I mean, is this what 209,000 acres of solar panels and wind turbines looks like? Isn't that just the most disturbing thing you've seen today? Wait, that can't be a desert. That's water back there, isn't it? I can't tell. Actually, it could just be more. Yeah, I see. It could just be more and more wind, solar panels. Now, yeah, what happens if hailstorm hits? Whoops. No, I don't want to do that. Okay, wait, let me read what this says. So Dave Bondi, once again, this county, Iosco, sorry, I've never heard anything from them. Losco, maybe that's an L. County residents are pushing back against a proposed 1,800-acre solar facility on farmland. This is just the beginning. Michiganders planning to do this. So, Michigan's planning to do this. Over 200,000 acres statewide. That's only 18 seconds. Let's see what he says.
My boys grew up here hunting.
Oh, you can barely hear.
If this goes through, I'm against it. The hunting will be infected. The wildlife will be infected. The water will be polluted, I believe. And I think we should vote no. And I think we should fight to the end. And if come Monday, we'll have some help in the White House.
Yeah, unfortunately, people think that Donald Trump's going to help, but I don't. He'll be going on Thursday to get his marching orders from the World Economic Forum, and November of 2019, he did the same. He went to Davos and spoke to them, and then March of 2020, we had a national health emergency. So don't be surprised if March of this year, some more stuff goes down. March is prime time to start initiatives because the billionaires of the world look at the stars and see how they align for energy's sake. So it's just the truth. The billionaires look at the stars and try to get them to line up when they roll out new initiatives or new projects or anything. The big ones. Michigan DNR pauses future land lease for solar arrays after outcry. So Michiganders fighting. That's all I wanted to highlight there. Detroit using eminent domain to install solar farms in cities' neighborhoods. Detroit Mayor Mike Dugan is using eminent domain to take over blighted neighborhoods and install solar farms he hopes will offset electricity used by the city's 127 buildings. Today, Detroit takes a step into a major national leadership role in fighting climate change, he said. Detroit's 127 buildings are currently powered by 33 megawatts of energy per year from traditional sources. 33. Largely fossil fuel. In the next 2 years, we are going to build solar fields that are going to produce that 33 megawatts of energy in renewable energy, effectively generating all the power for the city buildings from solar fields. If you're a renter, we will be giving you money to move and 18 months of free rent. You mean taxpayers are going to pay for 18 months of rent for everybody that he's buying their houses, and that he has to buy them at 125% of the property value. So again, here are all our taxpayer dollars being funneled into solar and wind that we don't want. If you are a landlord or you own vacant lots, we're going to pay you your fair market value. We have sent the city council the documents asking us to move forward in condemnation. Those folks will be treated fairly, but there will be more than 900 parcels we're going to have to acquire in phase 1. So, again, the government is pushing to buy up all the properties. Commercial real estate will collapse this year, despite Donald Trump trying to get people to go back to work, at least the federal government, right? And now, because he just created 2 more departments, the government is bigger, so instead of like 60% of all the jobs in America, it's probably more like 62% now that are government jobs. So that means, 38% of people are paying for 62% of people. Talk about unsustainable. And this is just a showcase that this is not just Michigan, and it's not just the United States, of course. The UK government wants to ban communities from stopping wind and solar. This came out December 14th, so it's, it's lockstep, right? Big club. All the governments are doing the same crap. Climate energy grifts. Yes, Brent, thank you for joining me. And thank you guys all for joining me and for still being here, even though I'm almost 2 hours in now and I'm not even halfway done. So unfortunately, I think I'm going to have to do a part 2 of this. The final version, let's see. Currently, communities can oppose projects through judicial reviews, and they can do it repeatedly. The Starmer government's proposal is to limit potential opponents of wind and solar installations to just one judicial review per project, a new document published today has suggested. The document features plans to speed up planning and permitting processes for large wind and solar projects and streamlining those processes. Excuse me, to make sure there's nothing to unduly slow down vital infrastructure development. Okay. The Keir Starmer government wants to build a net zero grid in the UK by 2030, which it plans to do by building a huge amount of wind and solar generation capacity, including in areas previously protected by conservation legislation. So again, you can't build anything there because the government says, but oh, now we can put a bunch of horrible solar and wind on that land that we were just saving. It's, again, if you think that this is about saving the planet, and then you actually look into lithium mining, cobalt mining, and wind and solar, you have to know it's not about saving the planet. Local communities have protested several such projects due to their impact on the environment, which the government appears to see as an obstacle on the road to net zero. Yeah, yes, we are an obstacle. A new era of clean electricity for our country offers a positive vision of Britain's future, with the energy security, lower bills, good jobs, and climate action. This can only happen with big, bold change, and that is why the government is barking on the most ambitious reforms to our energy system in generations, Energy Minister Miliband said in the document. Back to Michigan, signs of a ceasefire in Michigan's energy wars. This was August, though, and it was after Governor Whitmer said she was going to take over the zoning. Thanks to taxes paid by Michigan wind and solar farms, rural police and fire departments are getting new equipment and adding new shifts. Schools are being upgraded, and local roads are finally getting long-needed repairs. Farmers, meanwhile, are driving new pickups, building new barns, and repairing and replacing aging farm equipment. Thanks to taxes paid by Michigan wind and solar, highly subsidized, the Fed gave 129 million to accelerate the development of wind and solar. So that's taxpayer dollars. So how can you say thanks to tax money from wind and solar, but tax money was what? There's no benefit. Yeah, I'll show you. Michigan gets 129 million from feds to accelerate development of large wind and solar projects. Michigan will soon have millions more at its disposal to reward communities that host solar farms or wind turbines covering hundreds of acres, as well as support their expansion across the state. The state is in line for 129 million in federal funds to accelerate the sitting, zoning, and permitting of large-scale renewable energy installations, key to the state's goal, command economy, of rapidly decarbonizing the electric grid over the coming decade. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, the Biden administration, and Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer announced Monday, July 22nd. The money, part of the $4.3 billion being distributed nationwide, comes from the 2022 Federal Inflation Reduction Act's Climate Pollution Reduction Grant. $4.3 billion to reduce inflation? But if you know what inflation is, an increase of the money supply, then how is it that giving $4.3 billion that we don't have, because we're trillions of dollars in debt, right, to focus on something, again, that nobody voted for? This is all command economy. This is all fascist. At the same time, the state is offering a carrot to municipalities that work with developers to welcome large solar and wind installations or major battery storage projects. Major battery, yeah. The federal money announced Monday will support Michigan's Renewable Ready Communities Award, officials said, offering grants of $5,000 per megawatt to communities that host and permit any portion of grid connected projects of at least 50 megawatts, or at least 100 megawatts if wind generation is involved. The initiative, which opened for applications earlier this year with $30 million of Michigan taxpayer money, in-state funding could push developers and officials to negotiate for project approvals at the local level. So, yes, lots of our taxpayer dollars going towards our enslavement. Under the Michigan grant program, the state pays $5,000 per megawatt, whereas if a developer sought permitting through regulators at the Michigan Public Service Commission, it would have to pay $2,000 per megawatt to a host municipality out of its own pocket as part of the community benefits payment. There's more in it for local government if they can come to an arrangement, and there's a financial incentive for the developer to also work it out at the local level. $129 million in federal funds will also help Michigan kick off other initiatives aimed at breaking down barriers to building more solar, wind, and renewable energy projects across the state, launching a new Renewable Ready Communities program. So there you have that linked in here. Officials will create a brownfield renewable energy pilot program offering grants and renewable projects built on previously developed land that is abandoned or underused because of factors like industrial pollution. The money will also strengthen the Eagles Renewable Energy Academy, offering technical assistance for local and tribal governments to improve planning, siting, and permitting for renewable energy facilities. The funds are also key to making progress on the state's new energy standards adopted in 2023 and requiring a move away from fossil fuel-based generation. Northwest Indiana is a windmill dystopia. That's sad. I haven't drove through Indiana since I moved back from Mississippi. I would once a year drive through Indiana from Mississippi to here in Michigan. But now I don't go anywhere, which I'm okay with. All right. Public input sought on permit for controversial Michigan salt mine, January 6, 2025. Regulators are seeking public input on a draft on an air pollution permit for a controversial $1.2 billion salt and potash mine in Osceola County. Eagle is taking public comment until January 27th on emissions permit for Michigan Potash and Salt Company, which is trying to develop a salt and potash mine near Everett. So, if you want to give your input on that, the link will be down below. Give a public comment. Let them know you don't want it. Okay, I think... Oh, right here. Public hearing on Michigan Potash Operating LLC air permit to be held. A public hearing has been scheduled on a permit to install Michigan Potash Operating LLC, and yeah, you got that, 27th. If you live in this area, you need to educate yourself on the air quality laws and the scrubbers on the exhaust that will be in operation, and how often they will be inspected, and who is responsible for the inspections. After they are up and running, it is too late to complain, and your lungs and the ecology of the area may suffer unfixable damage. DCP 123, great comment on that article. Now, this is EDRA, Economic Development Responsibility Alliance of Michigan. Michigan Republicans are environmental opportunists. Absolutely. January 10th, 2024, statewide, while Michigan Democrats have been systematically and aggressively destroying the state's wetlands, aquifers, and farmland under the Whitmer and Biden administration's profit-driven green energy subsidies, Michigan Republicans are becoming environmentalists of opportunity. From Gotion to industrial solar, Michigan Republicans have seen these not as looming environmental catastrophes, but as opportunities to score political points, which are meaningless to Michigan residents. On January 6, Michigan's Senate Republicans issued a statement condemning the DNR's plan to clear-cut over 400 acres near Gaylord for industrial solar field development, citing concerns over wildlife habitat. Senator John DeMoose and Representative Parker Fairbarn used strong language to oppose the environmental destruction of unproven green energy projects. Republicans emphasized the need to slow projects down in the face of environmental unknowns and the importance of prioritizing resident input over the pursuit of political goals. Rep. Fairburn went further. This administration has shown blatant disregard for local control and the input of local residents in crafting policy around alternative energy initiatives. And this is one more example of how it seeks to utilize our state resources to achieve political goals. Yet, the very same day, Michigan Senate Republicans issued another statement aggressively backing the MEDC MSF Board's $50 million funding for the highly contentious Copperwood mine in the UP, a mine which would be built directly adjacent to the Porcupine Mountain State Wilderness area and which possesses a clear and present threat to Lake Superior. In this letter, not only do Michigan Republican senators advocate for the mine's environmental destruction, they openly mock and accuse the groundswell of Michigan residents who oppose the project of falsehoods, duplicity, misinformation, and arrogance. The Change.org petition to stop the Copperwood mine has gathered over 400,000 now, almost 420,000 signatures. The crisis the mine poses to the Porcupine Mountains and Lake Superior prompted the formation of a nonpartisan grassroots advocacy group last spring called Protect the Porkies, which has collaborated with environmental organizations across the state. The mine's most recent Eagle Air Permit input session was flooded with concerned residents from across the state, from Ironwood to Detroit. Senator DeMoose stated that it was beneath the dignity of Northern Michigan University to cave to the whims of political activists and their cause, citing the need for jobs, which would in reality be temporary and recruited from outside the area, and for an ore supply which most likely will be shipped abroad. Both Michigan Democrats and Republicans have demonstrated clearly and repeatedly that they do not care about their constituents and they do not care about the environment. The only issue which seems to truly motivate Michigan's legislators is corporate profit. Absolutely well said. Does it say who wrote it? No. It doesn't say exactly who wrote it, but good job over there at Edra, however you would like to say it. Michigan ACLU says Free Press report on Detroit police surveillance activity is a concern. September 14th, 2024. A Detroit Free Press investigation suggests that the Detroit Police Department has been conducting widespread surveillance of hundreds of people involved in protests for several years. Surprise, surprise, right? I mean, the drones, have you guys seen drones, by the way, in the sky? I look in the sky, I think they're drones. They don't look like stars, but they're just sitting there. What are they doing? Collecting data. If they are drones, it's always what it is, right? Surveillance, probing, military probing. Dan Korobkin is legal director of the ACLU of Michigan. Law enforcement really has no business using public resources and personnel to collect information over social media or otherwise about people who are not reasonably suspected of serious and significant criminal activity. I'm sure if you guys are on Twitter, you've seen that over in the UK, they are arresting people for their social media posts. So we're not far away from that, unfortunately. If people thought or knew in advance that the law enforcement was going to do this, they would be less likely to speak freely, travel freely, live their lives the way that everyone should be able to live, he said. Yeah. Chief White stands by his statement that the Detroit Police Department does not surveil people who are not accused of violating the law. Furthermore, while policy permits members to search for and examine social media information within the public domain, no member is permitted to collect or maintain information on individuals based solely on conduct protected under the First Amendment. This brings me to the Biological Sciences Division at the University of Chicago. Algorithm predicts crime in a week in advance, but reveals bias in police response. Advances in machine learning and artificial intelligence have sparked interest from governments that would like to use these tools for predictive policing to deter crime. Minority Report, anybody? Early efforts at crime prediction have been controversial, however, because they do not account for systemic biases in police enforcement and its complex relationship with crime and society. Data and social scientists from the University of Chicago have developed a new algorithm that forecasts crime by learning patterns in time and geographic locations from public data on violent and property crimes. The model can predict the future crimes 1 week in advance with about a 90% accuracy. In a separate model, the research team also studied the police response to crime by analyzing the number of arrests following incidents and comparing those rates among neighborhoods with different socioeconomic status. They saw that crime in wealthier areas resulted in more arrests, while arrests in disadvantaged neighborhoods dropped. Crime in poor neighborhoods didn't lead to more arrests, however, suggesting bias in police response and enforcement. Spatial models ignore the natural topology of the city, said sociologist and co-author James Evans. Transportation networks respect streets, walkways, train, and bus lines. Communication networks respect areas of similar socioeconomic background. Our model enables discovery of these connections. So, transportation networks, the smartest road that we have in Detroit, that data is going towards pre-crime. The new model isolates crime by looking at the time and spatial coordinates of discrete events and detecting patterns to predict future events. It divides the city into spatial tiles roughly 1,000 feet across and predicts crime within these areas instead of relying on traditional neighborhood or political boundaries, which are also subject to bias. The model performed well, just as well, with the data from 7 other U.S. cities: Atlanta, Austin, Detroit, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Portland, and San Francisco. We created a digital twin of urban environments. If you feed it data from what happened in the past, it will tell you what's going to happen in future. It's not magical, there are limitations, but we validated it and it works really well. This individual said, chat said, now you can use this as a simulation tool to see what happens if crime goes up in one area of the city, or there is an increased enforcement in another area. If you apply all these different variables, you can see how the system evolves in response. A study, Event-Level Prediction of Urban Crime Reveals Signature of Enforcement Bias in U.S. Cities, was supported by DARPA. And this new bar for culture and society. Of course, we all know what DARPA is. I don't know what that other... I'm sure that this is another very powerful institution that has a government by the throat. Or us by the throat, rather, because the government is in on it. Digital twin. A digital twin is a virtual replica or simulation of a physical object, process, or system, or human. It captures real-time data and allows for analysis, monitoring, and optimization of the physical counterpart, enabling organizations to gain insights, improve efficiency, and make informed decisions. This technology can enable users to reorient production lines digitally for troubleshooting, train new employees in a safe, risk-free environment, and run simulations to test new products. Sounds great in theory. It's just these people have no value for our lives because they think the world's overpopulated. So if you think the world's overpopulated, somebody's got to die. In sandboxes of innovation, digital twins provide the perfect conditions for engineers to analyze the performance of real-world designs. It is no wonder why we have seen such an explosion in their use. A report from the Capgemini Research Institute shows that 61% of aerospace and defense organizations now consider digital twins a strategic part of overall digital transformation. With a new era in store for the manufacturing industry through the rise of Industry 4.0, which is the merging of man and machine transhumanism, which I won't be able to get to today even though I wanted to, it is imperative to take a deep dive into potential benefits and implications of implementing digital twins for all levels of manufacturers and other sectors of the economy. Digital twins create virtual models of real-world objects and subject them to continuous use to evaluate how they handle regular use, added stress, and redesigns to test for stability, determine flaws, and make a system more efficient. For example, a car manufacturer can recreate the interior of a vehicle to determine if the passenger's comfort level, potential blind spots that could impede the driver's field of vision, and the instrument's panel's aesthetic and ease of use. A virtual hybrid engine can also be monitored and tested to comply with government performance regulations. As we transition towards smart factories, the focus shifts towards closed-loop quality control. Right to work will be threatened by this as well, is the note that I gave. So if you don't know about right to work, I'm sure most of you do, but John Deere is notorious for not allowing farmers to work on their own tractor, right? You spend $400,000 on a John Deere tractor, and yet you can't work on it. They're trying to do that with everything. Ford, Toyota, all of them. That's the closed loop quality control is going to be part of that. Emerging technological advancements in manufacturing, we aim to minimize quality inspection costs at the level of hardware expenses. So, yeah, eventually they want to take out all of the local mechanics, right? If you are a mechanic, you got to work for Ford to work on Fords. And they're going to do that through the software system, right? Now cars are computer on wheels, so they can do it because of that, especially 2025 and everything that is beginning this year with cars. I think it's like ODS or something, 3. Anyway, that's a topic for another day as well. It's just so much going on. It's all connected too. It's all connected. So I put AI creating digital twin human. An AI created digital twin human refers to a virtual representation of a person generated by artificial intelligence. Essentially, a computer simulated version of an individual that can mimic their appearance, behavior, and even potentially their thought patterns, using vast amounts of data like speech patterns, images, and personal information to create a highly realistic digital twin that can interact and respond like the real person. This technology is increasingly being explored for applications in healthcare, customer service, and virtual experiences, video games. It's in our video games. I'm a gamer. Our gaming industry has been ruined by the software as a service model where you will own nothing. And unfortunately, it's one of the reasons why I want to stop doing this YouTube channel, or rather Rumble, excuse me. I transferred over to YouTube, but I really think this information is valuable, but everything I'm doing is giving my digital twin an opportunity to be me. I'm just giving more and more information to the AI. And so now an evil digital twin, which I have an article right here, evil digital twins and other risks. The use of twins opens up a whole new host of security concerns, right? So now they create an evil version of myself saying things that I never said. And somebody could see it and say, oh, look, Michelle said this, this, and this, and now she goes to jail. Or worse. When really it was my digital twin. But how can you tell the way technology is going? And right now, this is really me. But, in 5 years from now, I could have videos being pumped out into the metaverse, and I'm not even alive. And that's part of this transhumanist thing, where we will live forever in the metaverse. We'll live forever in the metaverse as a digital twin, but that's not us, obviously. It's not your soul. Your soul will live forever. But that's, again, topic for another day. Okay, so I was gonna get into the video game stuff, but I don't have time for that today. Grand View Research has predicted that the global digital twin market, valued at $11.1 billion in 2022, will grow at a 37.5% compound annual growth rate from 2023 to 2030 to eventually hit $155 billion. But as companies expand their use of digital twins and others create new ones, experts say organizations are also increasing their cybersecurity exposure because digital twins rely on data to create an accurate representation of whatever they model. They are vulnerable. What if the data is corrupted or, far worse, stolen and used for evil rather than for the intended purposes? Precisely. Digital twins and generative AI are a powerful pairing. Today, 75% of large enterprises are actively investing in digital twins to scale AI solutions. Each technology has immense potential, and together they could unlock trillions in total economic value. Now, I'm going to go back here really quick. This is Automation Alley. I forgot to mention that. And of course, that is the World Economic Forum's little project that's down in Detroit. Which, yeah. Smart Road from Washtenaw to Wayne County could incorporate usage fees. Testing continues of pilot. December 2nd, 2024. The proposed 39-mile project is envisioned to run from M10 to Ann Arbor, Saline Road, with infrastructure intended to disseminate information to motorists using connected and autonomous vehicles or CAVs about everything from traffic conditions to road obstructions, including sensors and wireless communication. It's a smart road on Interstate 94 between Wayne and Washtenaw counties. Washtenaw, sorry. Could eventually incorporate usage fees through the project, though the project is still in the early stages. So there's the map of it. And you're not only going to have surveillance state, but you're going to be charged for it. That's what it sounds like to me. Sensor poles, 55 feet tall, mark the median in the pilot's first portion, Haggerty to Rawsonville roads. The roadway and traffic conditions train software models to learn information such as the difference between a car tire and a plastic bag sitting in the road. If the project goes forward beyond the pilot, the next phase would change little from the public's perspective, said Ryan Mitchell, the administrators for MDOT's Office of Major Projects. Sensors and cameras would be implemented, but all vehicles would continue using the lanes. Creation of a dedicated lane with associated usage fees would go forward only if there is enough demand. So now Michigan Dems want to spend $1 billion on a choo-choo train from Detroit to Traverse City. Democrat riders will be taxpayer subsidized $1,200 a ride. This is the fastest way to incinerate tax money. Well, that might be a goal, but of course the goal is megaregions with high-speed rail in between them, and that I'm going to get into it. I'm going to get into it right now. I might have to skip some things, but we're going to get into the megaregions. Detroit receives $1.67 million for autonomous shuttle service. I can't look at the rest of this anyway, but I just wanted you guys to know. This was August 1st, $1.7 million for automation. So, U.S. Department of Transportation, planning across borders. This was 2015. Transportation planning and funding typically happens within political boundaries, even though travelers and goods often cross those borders in their regular movements. Innovations that decrease congestion, reduce environmental impacts, or make roads safer may be implemented in one city, but not in the neighboring one. But with the rise of megaregions, collections of large cities, suburbs, exurbs, and the areas between, characterized by concentrated economic opportunities and huge transportation challenges, some planners are changing how they approach their work. They're expanding their thinking across local, metropolitan area, state, and even international borders, right? Because although Canada might not be another country for much longer, North American Union coming up, right? Or, I'm sorry, the Greater American Empire is what they're calling it now. Our rebrand. As planning becomes more collaborative and less impacted by boundaries, innovations can be implemented across megaregions, which may lead to more seamless transportation. Sustainability is a major theme for megaregion planning in the Front Range region, where rapid development and population growth are straining regional and national resources and scenic areas. I-95 Corridor Coalition is the largest and most established megaregion alliance in the country. That's the one that's over by New York, of course. But if you go to rpa.com, I think, or .org, they'll have the America 2050 plan, which is the megaregion plan. Coalition members, including State Department of Transportation, Transportation and Port Authorities, Amtrak, federal transportation agencies, Canadian transportation agencies, MPOs, and the private sector, are playing increasingly important roles in shaping transportation decisions along the corridor. This coalition serves as a launching pad for new mobility initiatives, including projects that allow economically critical region to thrive. This is saying, okay, this is the big think, radical idea, redraw the U.S. map as a nation of city-states. Came out in 2023. Blue sky thinkers are questioning the relationship of cities and existing political boundaries. The modern U.S. economy is made up of metropolitan regions, not states, whose boundaries are arbitrary compared to local economies. Now, big think, of course, this is a captured website, okay? This is a globalist propaganda website, just so everyone's aware. A 2009 study identified 11 megaregions in the United States with 31% of all U.S. counties, but 74% of the nation's population, and an estimated 80% of employment growth by the year 2025. Others have called for a restoration of cities' annexing powers or greater metropolitan consolidation, reducing suburbs' power over zoning, housing, and de facto segregated school system. But perhaps the most radical idea would replace states with city-states, political regions centered on the real economy of cities and metropolitan areas. The map effectively outlines the nation of city-states, reflecting America's real economic relationships instead of non-economic jurisdictions of counties and states, which favor rural and suburban political power over cities. The cities don't have enough power. The country, we are messing things up by not allowing them to have their freaking solar panels in our backyard. Okay, so the High-Speed Rail Alliance. This is where Michigan's high-speed rail will go. First thing you'll notice is, well, first thing I notice, because I live closest to Grand Rapids, right? Big Rapids is close. Grand Rapids to Detroit, you know, Chicago to Grand Rapids to Detroit is going to be a big one. Then you have from Detroit to Traverse City. Oh, shoot. Let me get that out of the way. There. So the state of Michigan needs to develop a comprehensive plan and commit to dedicated, consistent funding for the network. Now, this right here is the High-Speed Rail Alliance Southeast Plan. And something that I noticed is that from Nashville to Knoxville, and then Knoxville to Asheville, and then Asheville to Charlotte goes right to where that North Carolina destruction was. Just something I've noticed. And then you come up here to California, where the fires have devastated. Blocking it again. So the fires have devastated this area. Can you see my... There it is. Okay. So yes, here and here is going to be a high-speed rail, and then already the high-speed rail from Las Vegas to Los Angeles is in the works. So that's something interesting. And then here is the high-speed rail for the Northwest quadrant, or Northwest region. There it is. And of course it goes to Vancouver, so that's going across the border. And then you have the Midwest plan. Now, the reason this worries me is because I know that the government will do whatever it takes to get this vision into place. Whatever it takes. They will perhaps, just an idea, speculation of course, they would perhaps take out East Palestine, Ohio, if they wanted to clear that area and make it cheaper in order to build a high-speed rail, because East Palestine, Ohio is right in here between Cleveland and Pittsburgh. So it seems like a lot of areas that are being affected by natural disasters have high-speed rail plans for the future. Now, one of these actually shows, here we go. So this is stage 1. The first stage, we have the Texas Triangle going in. We have California, the Northwest, and then Chicago. This is going to be the largest mega region, though. The Great Lakes mega region will be the largest by 2050, according to all their plans. So this one is very important. And so going from Chicago to Detroit to over here, obviously, to New York and Philly and that mega region, that's going to be important. And then going up to Toronto, it's going to be important. But then, stage 2, you have the Gulf Coast right here through Louisiana, and Mobile is going to get it. Eventually, it'll go all the way over, all along the coast down there. And how are you going to get these high-speed rails into place without eminent domain? I mean, if you use a directed energy weapon, which they have. Everybody should know by now it's a $1 billion industry, so they have directed energy weapons, and they have a necessity to have land for their transportation goals. Do you put it past powerful people to use the tools that they were given? Because they know that if they tried to buy up all the land that the high-speed rail system's supposed to go through, that people would be upset and they would, fight against it. But how can you fight against fires? Now, I understand that the forest fires happen, especially over in California. However, forest management has been long neglected here in Michigan as well as California, everywhere. Why? Is it ignorance or malevolence? That's always the question when you get down to it. Are they ignorant of what they're doing, or are they malevolent? Duke Energy Map shows how badly some areas of North Carolina were hit. So this is just showing what I was showing you. This is where the devastation happened with the hurricane. And again, this is where, this is right, sorry, Asheville, right here. I don't know, it could just be a coincidence, guys. It could just be a coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences, but some people do. So this is a book. I don't have it yet in my collection. It's on my list. A project for the Great Lakes Megaregion. Came out in 2015, and it gives a very detailed plan for what they want to do. So I think it's important for us to understand where they want us to be by 2050. In order to envision regional possibility in an age of renewable energy, escalating mobility, and increasing urbanization, the project assembles regional maps, design propositions, photographs, related architectural projects, and critical writings, all of which explore the region's key challenges. Rounding out the volume is a foreword that explores the role of transportation infrastructure in the development of the region, and an afterword that situates this project within the broader architectural project of imagining possible future worlds. So, oh, someone is here. Sorry, guys. Give me just 1 second. Sorry about that, guys. Mom wanted to know if I had a can of kidney beans. Sorry, Mom. No can of kidney beans. Flint bureaucracy keeps water turned off during freezing winter. Okay. Before I get into that, I'm just going to double check and make sure all my regional stuff. Yeah. Alright, let's do it. Flint bureaucracy keeps water turned off. Landlords sued the city of Flint twice in 2024. This just came out, by the way, January 13th, 2025. Landlords sued the city of Flint twice in 2024 after red tape wrangled residential and commercial tenants into a catch-22. The landlords want the city to turn on the water, but first they need a city rental inspection. They can't get the rental inspection unless the water is turned on, according to 3 landlords interviewed by Michigan Capital Confidential. This is the kind of bureaucracy that destroys people, right? It's destroying these people that can't have their water turned on, and the landlords. But as we get farther along into this, you're going to see how anti-private property Flint and, of course, our whole command economy really is. The city has 3 inspectors to grant the certificates, according to the record request, meaning each inspector is responsible for reviewing 5,000 rentals over a 3-year period. The city will place water service under the landlord's name, but if the tenant doesn't pay the bill, the city places a lien on the property. The city won't give a water affidavit, a document that places the water bill in the tenant's name, to the tenant until that person acquiesces to a city inspection. Hey, we gotta come inspect your home. And that way, we can deem it safe. It's all for your safety, not for your inconvenience. That's just a unhappy byproduct of this. Emily Dorr, Flint's Director of Planning and Development, wrote a December 2023 letter to the Flint City Council explaining the inspection process. Landlords, Dorr wrote, must pay a one-time rental registration fee of $250 and then a rental inspection fee of $225 to ensure that their property complies with the 2021 International Property Maintenance Code. Why? Why do we have to be subject to an international property maintenance code? Both the state of Michigan and the city of Flint rely on the code. The city's rental inspection program applies to tenants who make up almost 50% of Flint's residents, according to Dorr. Landlords can get water turned on for tenants if it's kept in the landlord's name. Dorr told Capcom in a phone interview, if a tenant doesn't pay the water bill, either the city or the landlord gets stuck with the bill. That's not my problem. They, landlords, aren't entitled to have the water in the tenant's name, Dorr told Capcom. They are the property owner. The only way we'll turn the water on in the tenant's name is if it's a licensed rental, Dorr said, adding that the license means the city knows that the property is safe and up to code. So, if it's not up to code, the codes that just got put into place in 2021 and 2023, there's 3 actually, 2 in 2021 and 1 in 2023, 3 different codes. But if you don't have a license, then you can't put it in the tenant's name. Like, this is just all anti-private property. This is basically you pay, and then you can put it in the tenant's name. We're not backed up. The landlords just don't want to get a rental inspection. I'm sure that the people that live there don't want a freaking rental inspection either. Do you want some state person to come into your home and like inspect the wall, inspect the lighting, and no, nobody wants that. The city charges $225 to cover the cost of sending inspectors back for multiple trips because many rentals aren't up to code and require extra trips. So now you don't know the code, you have them come in, you think you're good. No, you have a gas stove. Can't have a gas stove in the new code. I don't know if that's exact. I'm pretty sure that the new buildings are all electric, but it's been a year and a half since I read the building code, so don't quote me on that last one, but I'm fairly certain. Nobody passes the first inspection because the rental inspection program has been on hiatus for so many years because of the lawsuit. Well, I was like, what lawsuit? But they get to it. My job is to say to a tenant in the city, yes, we are trying to make sure you have an apartment to rent that is safe. No, your job is to try to get as much money as possible to make it as uncomfortable as possible for landowners because they don't like it when individuals own a couple properties, but BlackRock and Vanguard can buy up, and Dan Gilbert can buy up whole blocks. Rental inspections help the landlords if there is an eviction, allegedly, Dorr said, because some judges will toss eviction orders for rental properties that aren't registered with the city. Holy crap. How is that okay? In 2017, landlord Carter Landon challenged the rental inspection ordinance and got it thrown out by a federal district judge. His suit claimed that the ordinance violated his Fourth Amendment right to be free from warrantless searches, arbitrary and retaliatory fines, and civil and criminal charges. Got thrown out by a federal district judge because they're captured. Everything's freaking captured. The new ordinance requires that all rental properties be registered with the city and certified as complying with the code after being inspected. The ordinance requires that water service be placed in the name of the property owner unless the city's customer service department receives a water affidavit, a copy of a lease, and an application for water service. The application requires that rental properties be registered and certified by the Building Safety and Inspection Division. If all 3 of the documents above are not provided, city ordinance requires that the customer service department place water service only in the name of the property owner to ensure that the water bills will be paid. Dorr's letter to the city council said. The city is also prohibited from providing free water service under state law. With all the water that we have available, you can't have free water. In Durand, 20 miles away from Flint, a city inspection cost only $55. In Flint, an inspection costs $225, 4 times more. Rental inspection isn't supposed to be a profit center for the city, Constable told Capcom. It's supposed to be there to cover costs of the operations of fulfilling rental inspections. If there are 15,000 rentals And they only have 3 inspectors. How are you going to inspect them? They just want their money, Kirby said in a phone interview. We have many tenants living in the city without water because of the bureaucracy of the city of Flint. Now, why is this happening? Michigan's Laura receives FEMA funds to enhance state building codes and inspector training, November 27th of 2024. FEMA, thanks FEMA, has awarded the Michigan Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs $1.9 million. So that's why that we have 3 more people in Flint, Michigan going around harassing people, is because FEMA gave our taxpayer dollars to do this. The funding will be used to develop and implement initiatives aimed at building code compliance across the state. And if you think they're not coming for the country, of course they are. Unfortunately, where I live is definitely not going to be very green and energy efficient for them. So, in the future, I'll probably have to pay $30,000 just to get my place up to code. This includes assessing needs of local governments. Oh, and I have a gas stove, and I'm not getting rid of it. This includes assessing needs of local governments and building inspectors, developing educational materials on building code updates, and delivering training and outreach programs. Funding comes from building resilient infrastructure. Resilient. It's one of those key words that they love. Sustainable, resilient, equitable, justice, and environmental justice. Communities Grant Program, which provides funds to states, communities, tribes, and territories to create more resilient nation, reduce disaster suffering. Oh, the suffering that we get from our government is so much worse. And avoid future disaster costs. Thanks, FEMA. Construction codes. This is another thing I'd love to get into. Not today, of course, because this is already going close to 3 hours. Thank you guys for hanging out. But, maybe, just like with this, the 5-year transportation I just found. Michigan Department of Transportation from 2024 to 2028. I'm sure that there's a whole big plan in here, kind of like LA 2.0. There's probably some smart stuff going on here that we're going to have to be aware of. FEMA awards $1.9 million to Michigan Department of Licensing, yes. Investors bought record number of homes in the majority black cities like Detroit in 2021, according to a report. Came out February 17th. I'm close, guys. I'm close to the end. 2022. Now, this is important, though. Last year, outside investors gobbled up houses in the metropolitan areas across the country at an alarming rate. An analysis by the Washington Post found and appeared to target many black majority cities. In fact, Detroit was one of the top 10 cities where investors bought the highest shares of homes, according to the data from the real estate company Redfin. The analysis considers real estate investors to be large corporations, local companies, or wealthy individuals who generally don't live in the properties they are buying, who either look to flip homes to new buyers or rent them. One of the reasons housing prices have gotten so out of control is that corporate America sensed an opportunity, right? 2014, Detroit filed for bankruptcy. Senator Brown, an Ohio Democrat, said last week at a hearing. Brown added they bought up properties, they raised rents, they cut services, they priced out family home buyers, and they forced renters out of their home. In 2021, you know what else happened? 2021, guys? You knew I was going to go there, right? I feel like my husband just got home, so if you hear something, dogs and stuff, I apologize. But the World Economic Forum to establish a global center for urban transformation in Detroit. This was 19 August of 2021. I locked the door. Leaders from Detroit and around the world call for increased public-private collaboration to address the growing challenges facing cities. Detroit will serve as the center's global headquarters, providing a model for more inclusive and sustainable urban development. Around the globe, cities are facing unprecedented challenges from COVID-19 to climate change and exposing deep systemic inequalities, said Jeff Merritt, head of urban transformation, World Economic Forum. As we chart a course towards a more sustainable and equitable future, government cannot carry this burden alone. Increased public-private cooperation is essential. Detroit is uniquely positioned to serve as the epicenter for this work. a hub for urban transformation and innovation that the world can look to for guidance and inspiration. The World Economic Forum will leverage its global network of leading companies, governments, civil society organizations, and academic institutions to support cities as they seek to rebuild their economies and forge more resilient communities. This includes mobilizing the global business community to commit expertise and resources in support of local communities. Global businesses are going to come local and buy up your supervisor for your little township. Advancing models for inclusive urban development and exploring new approaches to expand urban services and economic opportunity in low-income and traditionally marginalized communities. Bedrock, Detroit's largest real estate company, will host the center's work in Detroit, providing a testbed to rethink and redefine the benefits of possibilities of urban living. Bedrock is excited to bring the World Economic Forum's global platform to Detroit, said Kofi Boner, Chief Executive Officer of Bedrock, which Bedrock is owned by Dan Gilbert. This partnership provides an opportunity to showcase Detroit's extraordinary growth and positions Michigan's largest city and international border as a global hub for best-in-class thinking on developing a next-generation inclusive urban economy. The Center for Urban Transformation will base its activities in Bedrock's downtown Detroit portfolio with future intentions to join the developer's plan for the, I looked this up too, Gotion State, which will be at the heart of an innovation district designed to drive economic transformation and create pathways for Detroiters in future high-growth industries. That's all I have highlighted for this one, but the World Economic Forum is one of the reasons why I state the case that Michigan, unfortunately, is the smartest state in the United States. And Detroit is going to be one of the smart cities that the world is going to aspire to, right? Detroit's site becomes a hub for innovation, equity, and community growth. I'm going to have to get into the rest of this in a part 2. One more thing I wanted to share. I've said a couple times that what we live under is more like a fascist society rather than a capitalist. And that is something that needs to be addressed really quick because of this, right? So Detroit activists say no to capitalist World Economic Forum. This was October 22nd, 2021. They define the World Economic Forum as capitalists, but they are not. They are fascists. Fascism is a mixture of state-imposed regulations and private industry composed of public and private sectors, public-private partnerships, all under expanding state-supervised industrial production, influenced by market signals and shaped by indicative planning. Fascism advocated state dominance over the nation's transport, communications, and educational infrastructure, its financial institutions, and credit allocation, together with industries or activities critical to national defense. Private property was viewed as revocable privilege bestowed by the state. Sound familiar? Rather than a natural right as we find in liberalism, with strikes and lockouts abolished. On some occasions, the fascist government replaced the management of private corporations and corrected profits. It was a movement which placed national interest above private interest and regulated business as much as it did labor. World Economic Forum, Fascism Revives. I will go over that one in the next video. But this, fascism. Individuals may own property and small businesses, state ownership of essential services through a dictator. That's Whitmer. Nationalistic religion, unequal redistribution of wealth to reinforce a rigid class structure. Prices set around class structure and are influenced by supply and demand. High taxes focus on raising military funds for national defense. That one is, it applies, but the war that we're going to is with the environment, or rather with ourselves, in order to save the environment. So it does work in that context. Accessible and free to all that meet requirements. Race, nationality, citizenship are usually factors. Mussolini, Hitler, Mandic, And first, I'm not saying that, you know, Trump is literally Hitler. Of course not. It doesn't matter whether it's Trump or Biden. It doesn't matter who's in the puppet president seat. This vision, this one vision of the anointed ones is being forced upon us through both sheepdogs, right? Both sides are just sheepdogs corralling us into the same pen. It's just they know that we think differently, the Democrats or Republicans or, you know, left brain, right brain, whatever. There's obviously more than just two sides, but they know we think differently, and so they give us different sheepdogs that will guide us without us fighting back, right? Obviously, some people will accept Biden as a sheepdog, and some people will accept Trump. That's all I have for you guys. I want to thank you. I know that was a long one, and I still have 10 or 12 more articles that I want to share, but I can roll that over into the next video. It's been long enough. Thank you guys for watching. Stay safe, and faith over fear.